I used to love Tony the Tiger Flakes. I haven't had cereal in years, but I used to really
Frosted
like
Flakes.
Frosted Flakes. That's the one I can think of the name.
Tony the Tiger Flakes.
I remember the mascot. I don't know, man. Give me a break.
What's that
Mascot,
cereal
but
you
not the
kids ate?
simple
Tiger
name.
Flakes? Welcome everybody to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and ignoring anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if that's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Step by Step. Step by Step won 160 episodes with its first 6 seasons on ABC and the final 7th season on CBS. Today we're going to be talking about Episode 1, which was called Pilot, originally airing September 20th, 1991. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, Gordo, Ferg, Joe, and not Nick. Sorry guys. How's it going, guys?
Patrick Duffy horny.
Dear God, I need a man.
I get nothing this week. Sorry.
To be fair,
Put
this
a
isn't a
rat
very
in my locker. All right, here we go. That's what.
That was so sassy.
Rat boy.
I'm married Patrick Duffy, but it turns out he's just a leg on a bigger monster. That's the joke I'm gonna go with right now.
South Park.
I thought for sure Ferg was going to give us the South Park reference.
I was waiting for it. Yeah, I was surprised he
I'm
didn't jump on
TV's
it.
Patrick Duffy.
Good old Bobby Ewing.
Joe, you were about to mention, and are correct, not the most quotable episode. I mean, we'll obviously get into it as we go along, but like I told you before, I take all my notes for the show a little easier because I didn't have to like Hawkeye what everybody was saying. It wasn't so much about one-liners.
Yeah, these were easy notes.
Yeah.
I will say off the bat, though, without giving anything away, this is, and I think I mentioned to you guys earlier, this to me is like a sitcom's sitcom. It felt like a sitcom. It gets in, it gives you jokes, it gives you zaniness. There's a family, and we're out. It didn't feel drawn on. It wasn't 30 minutes. It was, I get why this show went 8 seasons or 7 seasons, because it just is background noise, for lack of a better word,
So I apparently had never seen the pilot because one of the main plot points of this show, I don't remember at all.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm with.
Well, I'll save it for when we get into it, but
I'll say this. I very much remember watching Step by Step. It was one of my favorites as a kid, to be honest. And this specific episode, the pilot, I don't at least remember. And this was a show that not only did it have its original run, but was pretty heavily syndicated for a while too. But this specific episode, the origin, I don't really remember.
Yeah, this was a TGIF show, wasn't it?
Yeah, first few years.
Yeah.
A weird thing I found out I didn't know about with this being on TGIF was the girl who plays Al, the youngest daughter who has appendicitis in this one.
Yes.
She actually met Jaleel White as TGIF cast member friends there, and that was her first boyfriend. So Al and Urkel were dating.
oh, I love Alkyl.
Yeah, Alkel? Urkel?
To stay with episode 1, I don't like to get ahead too often, but something I was going to mention at the end of the episode, but I guess we could talk about before we even get into it. They did have him guest star in episode 2 playing Urkel, which is something that ABC's done before, because when we did like Hang Out
House.
Mr. Cooper, they did,
The Seavers, yeah.
yeah, they had the Seaver thing, and then Full House did the same thing, where actually it was Michelle who guest starred on which show?
No, it was Urkel guest starred on Full House. It was the episode when Stephanie needed glasses, but she was embarrassed.
Right. But there was an episode that Michelle popped up. It's something we covered too, and then episode 2 had Michelle in it
Who's Michelle?
from
The Olsen
Full
twins.
House.
Oh, okay.
And now I can't remember what show it was. Damn. Well,
Sister,
regardless, it
sister?
seems to be a no. It was something we covered. But regardless, it seems to be something that ABC does to get crossover interest, which isn't.
Cross-promoting.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea early on. If someone's not sure about a show, or at least if they have like a show that it's already successful, bring someone over to this one for guest spot. It'll have the fans watch an episode, see if they like it or not.
I will say, though, that means Urkel's pretty well-traveled, right? Because that means he goes from Chicago to San Francisco and then to Port Washington, Wisconsin. Urkel's, when he's a kid, he's traveling around pretty good.
He probably invented some kind of like transportation device that like zaps him around.
He did. It's called the Purple Urkel.
Well, that's different. That's very
That just transports your mind.
right. But yeah, let's get right into this episode. Starts right with the intro, which first off, so the whole thing takes place in a like amusement park.
It's Six Flags Magic Mountain.
I saw that it was in California, correct?
Yep.
But what was the budget for just this intro?
It was clearly a lot because they paid money to have an exploding popcorn machine happen. Because that kid goes to sneeze, and you can basically see the hand pop out from under the thing and like throw popcorn at his face. I laughed so fucking hard at that.
Between that and I felt like just the way it was shot was like a little more cinematically.
Now, the version I remember didn't have the popcorn. It had him lick his ice cream cone and it fell. And then the other
Yeah.
one takes it off the top and puts it on his.
I do remember that, yeah.
Because like Cody, who's not in the first few episodes, isn't in the intro yet. Eventually, the mother and sister characters, who we'll talk about later, are no longer on the show later on. They're edited out. So it's kind of an ever-evolving.
I have zero recollection of them. I know they weren't in the later episodes, but I literally don't remember them at all.
They're just season 1, and I remember both of them for two very different things that I'll talk about when we get to them, and that's probably why I do remember them. But just real quick, Jay, you said how much money did they have for the budget of the opening theme song? I agree with you until it cuts to them on the roller coaster going up, and it is the worst green
yeah.
screen you've ever seen.
You know what's funny? It's something that I noticed it today, and I was like, wow, that's bad. But I never noticed that growing up. Granted, we were kids, but today was the first time I ever noticed that they were green screened, waving when they were looking down on the roller coaster.
Well, I mean, to be honest, like that was good technology back then. We're looking at it right now as almost every, when you have deep fakes and all this other stuff.
Oh, it's 30 years ago. It looks good. It looks fine. Yeah. And I mean, it didn't bother us as kids. I just mean now it's funny to see how big everything looks in theatrical and then, the clearly pasted on like a 90s green screen.
I mean, I think TikTok green screens are a little bit better nowadays.
Technology's come a long way. Also,
I could put myself on the moon on our Zoom call. I wanted to.
That's true. I will say, though, was it last week or 2 weeks ago we recorded an episode and Nick was like, wait, what's happening? And he realized he was wearing a green t-shirt and he was like washed out in his own background. That it's 2022. So,
it was like doing an episode with Jambi.
Yeah.
Mechalika High.
It also in the intro, the song is called Second Time Around by Jesse Frederick. He's done a lot of intro songs. He's kind of famous for it at that time. He did Perfect Strangers, Full House, Family Matters, just to name a few of the big ones.
I went deep on him. He has an album from the late 70s and like a couple singles too. He had like a sort of failed recording career, but I can't even imagine how much money he must make from Full House and Step by Step and all these things.
Yeah.
Like, good for him.
I know he did Family Matters. I didn't know he did Full House too.
I think Perfect Strangers as well.
Yeah, he did Perfect Strangers.
And we've had this convo before. I miss good theme songs on shows. Like,
It depends on the show. I think shows like this, they definitely fit. But I think a lot of times where we've talked about future shows, like some of the newer ones where they just kind of have a quick screen with the title, it works there too. It really just depends on the style of show.
Well, to be honest, like the theme songs that like really stick out to me and like ones that we covered, like Perfect Strangers, this, Family Matters, Step by Step, it's all the same guy. So I miss that guy doing themes.
Yeah,
He's like the CFO $ of TV themes. Now that
Yeah.
Nick's not here, we can talk a little bit about CFO $.
it's the same with all like the Disney afternoon and Saturday morning cartoons. Like, there was one guy that did all those too, and I think he died though.
Like, not to jump into wrestling too hard, but every wrestling theme from the 90s as kids that we love was either Jim Johnson or Johnson or Jimmy Hart, right? And then once they were gone now, it's just like, oh, we'll just pay some shitty new metal band to write a song. You're like, oh, this is a nightmare.
I do want to clarify for people who are listening who aren't big wrestling fans or are a normal level of wrestling fan, CFO $, which I think they just actually go by CFOs.
Yeah, they're just CFOs.
They are they're like the music group that did a lot of the more modern wrestling themes for WWE. They're no longer with them, but
I didn't even know that was the name of that group. Yeah.
They did all like the recently good ones too, like Sasha Banks.
They did Nakamura's theme.
They did Nakamura. They also did Robert Roode's.
I like the Bobby Roode one, but I hate the Nakamura one.
How do you hate the Nakamura one? It
gives me a headache.
Funny thing about the Nakamura theme is that was supposed to be Bobby Roode's theme.
no, other way around. Glorious was supposed to be Nakamura's.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Bobby Roode just comes up to strange Japanese music.
But
It's
let's
not Japanese.
Hold on, we're going to isolate people way too much because we're talking about one of the more like classic 90s sitcoms. Yeah, we're getting into a weird space.
Unless CFO $ wants to make us a theme song.
You know what won't happen is if you're going to just continue to say their name wrong after I keep correcting you about how it's pronounced and you keep saying it the wrong way, I don't think that'll inspire them to do something for us.
Touche.
But moving forward, because I think we've exhausted that conversation enough.
Well, I say we try to find we get this guy, the Frederick guy, to do a song for us. But
That
will
would be
say,
great.
What's
the
his
one
name?
thing I would ask him not to do that they do in this song is the weird kids chorus that I totally forgot
definitely
about.
not on the rest of the show either. 'Cause
Is it not?
Don't
Okay,
remember
'cause
that
I was
at
like,
all.
were there
No.
fucking kids singing? I never remembered that.
No, there isn't. This was definitely the extended version for this. Because it was a quick thing. It was just like the step by step, day by day, da 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 da.
So I don't know if it was all of season 1 or at least just this episode, but for this episode, yeah, the intro was almost 2 full minutes long, which for a television intro is absurd. Usually a minute tops, usually around 30 seconds.
Yeah.
This is a 23-minute pilot of a sitcom, and 4 minutes of it are the theme songs. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, because at the end, too, at the end credits, they go off on like a long rock saxophone
we'll
solo.
I want to
which
touch
I'm
on
all
that
for.
at the end. Yeah, we'll touch on that at the end of the episode too. But ultimately, I think what happened here was they spent a shit ton of money on this intro, and they were like,
We're
need to
using
use
it.
this footage. Yeah.
I worked really hard on this song. You need to use the whole thing.
It's in the contract somewhere. But when we were kids, there was like that show Kid Songs. There was that show Kids Incorporated. There was a really weird push pre-internet for like, oh, kids can sing songs, and it's like a thing, right? So I wonder if they were trying to like maybe capitalize on that.
Yeah,
And
I think-
Bop.
yeah, I guess now Kids Bop is a thing.
Also a show where there was like 6 kids.
That was Kids Bop was like a thing in the 90s. That's when it started.
Yeah, but Kids Incorporated and Kid Songs were the 80s, and this is 91. So I'm saying it was probably a carryover from that.
Oh, yeah.
There's also a Canadian version I can't remember the name of, but they would dress the kids up like pop stars, and I bought one of the records once because it had a little kid dressed up like Adam and the Ants, and I thought it was so funny. And then I sobered up and was like, this seems sketchy to own, and I got rid of it when we moved. I was like,
Just burnt it.
Yeah. It's like if the FBI ever shows up here, I'm gonna be in trouble.
I think I don't want to get too far just talking about the intro of the show because we have a whole episode to keep going into.
I'm
from
sorry,
this
it
point.
was a fifth of the show.
Yeah, he's
like-
correct. We're allowed to talk about it. It's that big of a part.
It's a very creative opening. It's like they put a lot of work into it, and that roller coaster is pretty awesome. It's like a really big wooden roller coaster. Like, it's huge.
Well, you know what? Let me give you a couple other tidbits if we're going to talk about the intro for most of the episode. Couple little things. There was an unaired pilot of this show
Oh.
that originally Mark was casted by some other kid. And in the intro, there's a couple clips where you can see the original Mark because he has dark hair. So the first shot where they're all walking, he's with his mom, Carol, and so if you see her with a brunette, son,
Mark's
that was the
blondie,
original
right?
Mark. Yeah. And he got recast for the episode we saw, which was the first televised pilot that was produced.
You know what's funny too is they had to redo this intro a few times because, like we said, they got rid of the mom and aunt. They added Cody, all this other stuff. So they have to just keep going back to this theme park and like recorded shit.
I suspect that's why, and I don't want to get too ahead, but because we've talked about Cody already, in later episodes and later seasons, when everyone's on the roller coaster, they change it so it's Cody and Mark looking up and waving, and I think that's because Mark wasn't there for the original filming of the
Oh,
intro.
that makes sense, yeah.
So I think that's how they got him into that scene to make it make sense.
You know what also was
Oh.
weird? It was the older girl and Al in the ball pit. It's like,
Yeah.
why are you in the children's thing?
And she's also like the sort of stuffy one. So like it doesn't make sense that she's in the ball pit.
Exactly. I mean, ball pits just are notorious for having pee in them and stuff. Like,
That's actually a true story. It's why McDonald's removed them. I watched a documentary on YouTube about it recently.
Because kids just piss in the ball pits, yeah.
well, I mean, you figure like little babies go in there and like they shit and piss themselves.
There was something like, this is a really weird fact to know, but there was something about like
Why?
6 left in the United States, and then COVID happened, and that basically finished the rest of them off.
There's like no more ball pits in America.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Good riddance.
I think we should have an S1E1 inflatable ball pit that will come to your party.
I'll give you a ball pit.
Gordo will show up at your house
Balls
if you'd
deep.
like, with the namesake of all of us, but I probably
I
won't
don't
be
want
there.
my name on that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to sue to get that taken off.
I'll sue you.
Can we get costumes made up of us, like as our cartoon character drawings? And then we'll just hire people to come in and not talk. Like,
But we just all show up as the Burger King Kids Club. Remember them? But
I
everyone's
do.
wheels for some reason.
Because he's in a wheelchair.
And they call him Wheels. Why? You could never do that now. I think about that like once a fucking week. I'll wake up and be like, how'd they name him Wheels? How did this get passed? I don't understand it. Don't roll a chair, man.
Okay, so let's get into the actual episode here. All right, so now let's get into the actual episode itself. So it starts with this establishing shot of a house with this title card over it that just reads his house. And then we go inside and it's a pretty realistic looking apartment. It's also an absolute dump. We've talked about this a lot in other episodes, how like realistic the house looks.
This is weird to me. Look, I get that he's a bachelor. I get that he's got 3 kids. He's single and he works. This is unrealistic. This is not. And
I'm going to say this, Joe. I think it was realistic because he was away in Jamaica for a whole week. Kids running the house.
We'll get into that, but he'd be bothered. He wouldn't just be like, oh, there's a spider in the cereal. No big deal. Everyone move on. Like, he doesn't give a shit about what's happening.
Throughout the episode, we kind of see there's a lot of examples where you could see how he was kind of a mess up until, ending up in the situation he did.
I will say later on, he does make the best breakfast sandwich I've ever seen in my entire life. So maybe I'm wrong.
But yeah, so we have the 3 kids sitting there. Let me just say this. This episode or the show in general, it's kind of like a modern twist on the Brady Bunch where there's a man and a female. They both have 3 children each. The only twist was this time, instead of 3 sons on one side, 3 daughters on the other, they kind of flipped one. So it's just 2 sons and a daughter and then 2 daughters and a son. Still ends up with 3 and 3 when they're all in the same house.
It's too bad they're missing out on a really horny maid.
Yeah.
We'll say that,
super horny dad.
We get the horny aunt, though.
No, we have the most horny dad in like the history of sitcoms.
That's true, but the aunt's pretty horny too.
But yeah, so anyways, right now it's the 3 children of Frank, and they're home without him at the moment, and they're about to have breakfast. And they're passing out a box of cereal each, which is cornflakes, bran flakes, and sugar flakes.
Oh, you must have been all about that, you bland bitch.
No, sugar flakes, gross.
I used to love Tony the Tiger Flakes. I haven't had cereal in years, but I used to really like
Flakes.
Frosted Flakes. That's the one I couldn't think of the name.
Tony the Tiger Flakes.
I remember the mascot.
What's that cereal you kids ate? Tiger Flakes?
That wasn't me trying to be old. That was me just literally not remembering the name of the cereal. Tiger Flakes are delicious.
All of which are empty. And we also see that they find a bowl of cereal that is literally, it's like the cereal and milk were left in the bowl for days, and now it turned into almost like concrete where you could lift the bowl by the spoon that's stuck inside of it.
You know what I found strange about this is all the other cereals were generic, but when he pulls that out, he goes, "Oh, we can find some Fruit Loops." So he used the name brand for the.
Oh, that is a good point. I didn't notice.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
I mean, also too, very unrealistic. Milk is going to do that. If anything, it's a liquid. It's going to evaporate and then make just a sticky mess.
You get a film on the bottom.
It's a fun visual gag, but yeah, and that's discovered right as the dad walks in.
There's nothing fun about the state of that house.
You
that
really
would be
hate that
child
joke.
abuse.
Well, I was more thinking that I was mad about the fact that it was cereal. If they were like, hey, look, we've got this beef stew from 3 days ago and it was stuck in the bowl, you'd be like, oh, okay, that seems like a fatty, congealy thing, but not a bowl of cornflakes.
Well, immediately right after, though, Patrick Duffy says, what did I tell you? Don't leave milk in a cereal for more than 4 days. So why don't you go and stuff it?
I don't know what you're responding to.
Yeah,
you're responding to something no one said.
I didn't disagree with you. I said that doesn't make sense. What are you talking about right now?
Did you have a line ready to say but didn't wait for someone to say the thing that you needed to be said?
Did you need a setup you didn't
Joe
get?
said it wasn't like he pulled out a beef stew from 3 days ago. And I said that what his line next, that saying, I told you not to take cereal out in 4 days, already defeats the fact that would be longer than 3 days by 1 day for the beef stew that he's allowing the children to leave cereal out in.
So your argument is 4 days of milk versus 3 days of stew for some reason.
You thought this was going to be a quick episode, Jay.
Do you think there's a point where Gordo realized he didn't have a point and now he just has to go with it?
I did have a point. You just don't have the big brain to follow my logic here.
Okay. Well,
I'm with Nick. I really think you have a carbon monoxide leak in your house. I'm 1,000% convinced of it.
So because you brought him up, and Frank is played by Patrick Duffy. He's the father in this show.
Handsome Patrick Duffy.
Yes. Well, also, to mention for the show, a lot of the reason this show even happened was the idea was Patrick Duffy had a contract with the production group. And after Dallas, they were contractually obligated to find him another show. So what they did was they got him and Suzanne Summers, who we'll meet later, who plays the mom Carol, who were basically like two of the hottest actors of the 70s. And they put them together to play parents in this and took a bunch of the children who were, half the kids in the show were from other things. And they try to like pull together this almost all-star cast to get different attention. So the kids might...
Where were the kids from?
Probably failed sitcom.
The oldest daughter is from My Two Dads. Remember that show with Paul Reiser?
No.
And even though we're not going to see him in this episode, Cody was on Dallas with Patrick Duffy.
Okay.
And I don't remember I don't remember everybody's character back history, but essentially the idea was to put a few familiar faces together that would garner attention from both adults and children.
Oh, wow. So it's like a super group of...
In a way, yeah.
Pretty much.
It's a Brady Bunch.
But to go back to the situation we were talking about, the cereal and all that, I'm a little confused by this whole situation so far. So he starts by saying he's glad to have them back when he first walked in, meaning that they weren't there when he was gone. Then they inform him that they're out of cereal and they find the bowl with the milk and all that. And that would also imply that they hadn't been there because they didn't see all this stuff happen. But then the dad replies with, I'm gone a week and you kids forget the rules, never leave a dirty dish in the sink for more than 4 days. So what's going on? Were they home or were they not home while he was away?
He just seemes like an all-around bad guy, in my opinion.
I don't think bad guy. I think bad parent.
No, definitely a bad guy.
He's a stalker. We'll get into that later.
Well, actually, to be fair, yeah. To be fair, we'll get into that.
That's a big jump ahead. So I want to get into that when we get to it.
Okay, you know what? Duffy might be a bad guy. I think you convinced me.
But I'm just a little confused by that in general because the lines he was saying early on are very conflicting. So I literally can't tell, were these kids home without him for his trip or were they away somewhere?
That's the impression I got. I got the impression they were home and the oldest kid's like 14 and it was watching the house.
Like, can we get like a world where they were left home alone fighting off the wet bandits?
Well, this is also the same year, I want to say, too, and a very similar plot to Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. It's just like a bunch of
Great movie.
blonde teens home alone while the mom's away in a vacation somewhere, so.
And then during all this breakfast stuff, the daughter, Al, tells her dad that she's not feeling too good and she thinks she should stay home from school today. And he feels her head and says it feels like a spelling test and tells her he'll give her a ride to school. She replies with, I knew I should have went with spastic colon. And I was like, that's a little advanced for a girl that age, right? To go with spastic colon. What is it? I'm assuming it's bowel problems.
Probably what IBS is, but it's probably what they called it then.
Back in my day, it was called spastic colon, not IBS.
I mean, I think the word spastic has been pretty much written out of history because that was like a sort of term, handicapped isn't used anymore. Like spastic was a word, or like mentally retarded isn't a word.
Well, I think calling someone a spaz was more of a thing.
Yeah, no,
But
you're
like an
spastic
option
itself
of that.
was like a proper term. Like, especially in England, you were like, oh, he's a spastic. Wasn't like a derogatory term.
like lame they used to use.
Right.
But
No.
my best guess is it's some sort of a bowel issue.
I mean, I would imagine.
You should have just said, Dad, I have watery shits.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's quite how they were doing things with 90 sitcoms at the time,
I
but
don't know if TJF would.
that might have to bump it to the 10 o'clock hour.
I can imagine that did not go well with her and Urkel dating. Al, let's have sex.
Oh, they're children.
They were teenagers, I imagine, when they dated for this story, and they're over 18, so we're not weird.
They were not over 18, but
Yeah, they
moving on before we go down a dark road here.
I mean, to be fair, I am having a heart attack already with this episode because it is 30 minutes of step siblings, and I don't know how I'm going to make it through.
Anyways, after this little exchange between the father and Al, they all head out to go to school. There's a quick little gag where the youngest son, Brendan, goes to grab his backpack and just knocks a ton of shit onto the floor, furthering how messy it is there. And from there, we get to a new establishing shot of a much larger house. And this has a title card over it that just reads her house. So now, To go back to the intro, it's made to look like it's already one big happy family. So now we're kind of figuring out where this is all going, right? I think the intro tells you enough about where they end up. So I guess this is just, you kind of know this is the origin story.
God, I can't shake the Brady Bunch thing since you brought it up. Didn't even occur to me until.
Yeah, I mean, I really just think that's what they were going for, as a modern day Brady Bunch in a way.
I think it'll be interesting when we do get around to the Brady Bunch, because I think we will at some point.
I would say for
to
sure.
To see
For
if
sure.
this kind of lines up with that, because you already said it, that you get dumped. I remember the show already dumped into the middle of this. I don't remember there being an episode where this kind of came together.
Yeah, I don't remember the one day when the lady met the fellow.
Well, I will say, just off top of mind, right? Like in the Brady Bunch, the dad is an architect. In Step by Step, he's a contractor. It's the blended families. The house has a big staircase. It's used a lot for people coming down for scene stuff. There's a crazy maid in that. In this, there's a crazy sister. Like I feel like they're definitely trying to hit a few different marks.
It definitely feels like that was the intention. Whether or not that was like the goal of the production group, how do you not draw those comparisons?
It's funny though, because I didn't until you said it, and now it's all I can think about.
Yeah. And so when we do get inside this house, it's again, we're seeing the three kids sitting in the kitchen. So they're kind of mirroring the situations. Only this time it's 2 daughters and 1 son. And the boy's worrying if his science project is good enough. And the oldest sister tells him that she doubts that any of the other 4th graders are doing anything with genetic research. So you're seeing a very big contrast from the Lambert house to the Foster house. The Foster house is Carol, the mother's children, that's their name.
I would just like to say that their kitchen is what I would describe as aggressively blue. Like,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
is painfully aggressively blue. Like, nobody would say, like, every single thing you see, same color across the fucking board.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
I mean, we think of that scene in Weird Science when the magic's
Yes.
all going crazy and the kitchen just flashes and turns blue.
Exactly what I thought of. Oh, I'm eating flies.
Yeah, I can't think of too many situations where you'd want to match your cabinets to the wall color. Like
It's dizzying. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird. And we just painted our kitchen cabinets recently, and you paint the wall a different color. That's a very important step to what you're doing.
Well, I will say that the kitchen looked big.
well, it's gigantic. I mean, we
It's a
talked
big
about
kitchen.
But I mean, I think that the same color paint kind of just makes that look bigger. That's just my opinion. 'Cause
well, I
it
think it's
really
also
isn't
just
that-
gigantic. No, it's gigantic.
It's deeper than you think.
Yeah, and then it turns into a salon. So maybe that's an extension, like that whole like the kitchen onto the thing it's like a whole extension. That's why it's so big.
It's just one of those, like I said earlier, Frank's house seems a little more realistic, very messy, but, we only really saw the kitchen. But, modest size makes sense. Then you go here and it's like a palace. You see how big the house is from the establishing shot. Later, we get into the living room and we see the extension in a minute where she works. And it's just a gigantic piece of property that she has. A little less realistic.
You know, it's strange they never bring up, at least on this, and I don't have much knowledge about it for the rest of the show, what happened to each of their spouses.
Yeah, they don't touch on it. And I don't remember if they ever do, to be honest.
One thing I noticed too, if we're talking about their house real quick, this is a very sitcom thing that I've never seen in real life, but especially now doing this show, I always notice. It's the weird alcove in the living room. Like Full House has the alcove, then the early seasons is Joey's bedroom, which seems weird. Reba, alcove that is a dining room. This show, alcove that is a dining room. It's like, I've been in a million houses in my life. I've never seen one in real life that has that. But on sitcoms, it's all the time. I also just like saying alcove.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
You think Al hangs out there and she calls it her alcove?
It's Al's Cove. I don't know why she's an old smoker when I do her voice, but it's Al's Cove.
I promise
Sounds
I'll
like a
quit.
fucking seafood restaurant. Welcome to Al's Cove.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's that generic television sitcom layout. From the left, it's that living room. To the right is always right where the kitchen is. There's the upstairs where you can access from either the living room or the kitchen. It's very typical sitcom, especially 90s sitcom.
Well, I don't want to jump ahead, but I was going to say it's got to be a big house considering how big that fucking kitchen table is. Like it was like a large like manor like table that can fit.
It had to fill that big ass kitchen.
Carol was preparing herself just in case she ever met a man that also had 3 children and they all had to move in.
They basically have Michael Keaton's Batman table where it's like, would you pass the salt?
Soup,
That's like
soup's
the
good.
table.
Not to jump ahead, but that's a big house.
For our listeners out there, if you want to start a drinking game for our show, it should probably be when any one of us says not to jump ahead, because you will be wasted by how often we say it.
Also, every time we say, like, not to get too off topic.
And
like,
moving
every
along.
time that we're like, and then she was stuck under the bed.
And you do a shot every time poo's brought up.
And in any event, as all this is happening, there's also the third child who's just sitting there detached from this conversation about the science project because she's concerned about a zit, which hasn't even appeared yet, but she knows is coming.
I had a huge crush on that one when I was young.
My crush was actually on Al.
Yeah, me too.
I liked the angry mean one from My Two Dads.
You stand outside a window blasting, "You can call me Al."
Just call me Al.
I love the idea of trying to woo a girl, even then with Paul Simon. It makes me so happy.
No, I mean, as far as like crushes from this show, to not jump ahead, but it would have for sure been Al. And then later on, much deeper into the show, JT gets a girlfriend.
I thought you were going to say your crush was JT later.
Then I had a crush on JT. No, but he had a girlfriend, like, who was like a mechanic or whatever, who came along in like later seasons. Big thing for her.
Oh, she was like when Zach's girlfriend in the later episode of later seasons of Saved by the Bell, who was like the motorcycle mechanic. It was like they're trying to introduce like a different rough-hewn character.
Oh, what was her name? No,
I wanted to say like Sam, but I think it's wrong.
Casey?
No.
Are you talking about Saved by the Bell or on Step by Step?
Saved by the Bell.
I think it was like Alex or something. I don't remember.
Mechanic-y.
Yeah, no, I know exactly who you're talking about, but I don't remember her name. And we'll touch on that when we talk about, well, anyways, before we spend too much time, we'll talk about Saved by the Bell in the near future. So we'll get into it then. But in any event, then their aunt walks in and asks where their mother is because she has a client due in 5 minutes. And when they tell her she's running late, the aunt replies with, "How can she work in her own house and be late?" Which,
Tori.
Great point.
Tori Scott.
Tori's the one, yeah.
It would have bothered me the whole show. Don't get angry.
Okay.
Now, can we talk for a minute about the sister coming in, Aunt Penny?
Yes.
Now, Patricia Darbo is her name. I think she's probably familiar to a lot of people because she's one of those 90s actors who was just in movies and TV shows all the time. But the main thing, and this is just a weird aside, but the main thing I always think of her is, have you guys ever seen the movie In the Line of Fire? It's the Clint Eastwood, John Malkovich movie where John Malkovich is trying to assassinate the president.
I'm familiar with it, but I don't remember.
I remember the name.
Yeah, it's really, I love that movie. It's one of those stupid, like, it's always on HBO, and I've just watched it like 1,000 times in my life. But there's a scene where she plays this like a bank teller, and he like tries to flirt with her just so she'll leave him alone, but she asks too many questions. So she like, there's a scene where he just shows up at her house and just brutally murders her dog, and her roommate, and the camera just pans off, and you just hear like while John Malkovich is like grunting and murdering her. And I haven't seen this episode of the show in like 20 years, and it like totally took me out while I was watching. When she walked in, I was like, oh no, don't open the door, John Malkovich is coming. It's so bad.
So I watched this on HBO Max, and you pick it, it says S1E1 pilot, and it's just her face go like, like she's making a goof. And I'm like, I told you I don't remember the character like at all. I'm like, is this the right show? Is there another step by step?
Am I at the wrong party?
Send
me a screen cap of that. I want to see
that. Once the aunt walks back out, down rushes their mom, who's Suzanne Summers, who plays Carol Foster. She's best known at this point from Three's Company, just like Patrick Duffy, the counterpart, best known from Dallas before the show.
Although I will say she's also best known for those Thigh Master commercials that played incessantly when we were kids.
Yeah, I guess in between, yeah. She was very known
I
for that.
can do this all day! Those commercials.
Stupid question. Mark Summers from Nickelodeon. Husband or brother or no relation?
Probably no relation.
I think neither.
I don't think any relation.
They probably both have stage names. I bet neither of them is last name Summer.
I don't know. They kind of look similar.
I don't know that for a fact, though.
You think Mark Summers and Suzanne Summers look similar?
A little bit, yeah. Look at yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
want to fuck them both equally, so I guess it makes sense. I would like to watch a sitcom, though, called Summers to Summers.
Sure.
Somerset? Indian Summers, where they live in Indian Queens, England? We can brainstorm this all day long. We can find a way to pitch this.
Yeah, let's table that one.
Okay.
And so she rushes downstairs, and she knows she's running late. And the oldest daughter tells her, Mom, you're a hairdresser, not a heart surgeon. Get some perspective. And this is the oldest daughter, Dana. She's had a couple one-liners at this point. I guess it's her role to be the sarcastic one. And they really kind of drive that in.
It's weird, too. I don't know if you guys ever had a haircut before 11 a.m. before, but they're getting ready for school, which means these are like 7:30 in the morning haircuts, which is like if you're going to do, like, I don't know what these people in the salon are getting done. I know there are some hair procedures that can take like a whole day, but like 7:30 seems early just to be
No,
like,
I used to get
I need a
haircuts
cut
early in
and
the morning
curl.
all the time.
Also, look at the
early?
clientele,
Yeah.
though. They're all elderly. Old people are up super early.
I guess that's true.
I mean, it depends on your work schedule, right? So you got to make it work for whatever your schedule is. So some people who might have like a 9 to 5 will try to get their haircut before they go to work.
I'd just rather go on a Saturday and sleep in. For me, sleeping in is like 7:45. So I'd actually be up when the haircut appointment was, but I'd rather have the 5 minutes.
But if everybody shared the same sentiment as you, then everyone would be getting a haircut on Saturday and they'd fill up and you'd have to find another time to go.
Well, I got nothing now.
I would open up a whole bunch of 7:45 weekdays.
By the way, Suzanne Summers and Mark Summers, not related.
No way.
He actually took the stage name because he liked,
Told you it was a stage name.
His last name was Winters, and he thought it wasn't good enough.
you got to change your name. And then, so I guess it was a DJ. He liked a DJ and his name was Dick Summer. So he just took the name and put an S on it.
What was his original last name?
Balls Winter.
It's like, what can I change this to? I need something completely the opposite.
I think it's just funnier that someone having the first name Balls other than Balls Mahoney.
It's a family name, okay? No make fun of me.
Moving on.
So in any event, yeah, the mother walks through the door from the side of the kitchen, and that's when it's revealed that the salon is attached to the house, which is like a pretty nice looking salon. It didn't look like a little side hustle business. It was like a fully established salon attached to the house.
So when they do the exterior shot of this, you know what this house is? This is a funeral home. This
Looks
house is
like
like
one.
an old funeral home. If you look at the exterior shot of the house, they have that weird little like funeral home, like alcove thing extension that like people drive up and they bring the casket outside. There's no way that you would have that much space and it not be at some point a funeral home.
So what you're saying is that the conversion to a salon was not a very big undertaking.
Waka waka.
You could say that they didn't have to formaldehyde anything.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
That was quick, at least.
That's what she
We're gonna give
said.
him anything for that one. But yeah, and then also the salon was clearly a family-run business because her mother and sister both worked there as well. I think at this point, and I don't think at any point of the episode do we establish if they live in the house with her.
So two things to pull up. The mother, like we mentioned earlier, is only on one season, but she then becomes the mother on Grace Under Fire for the entirety of that show, like a year later. So we'll see her
yeah,
again
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. That's where I recognized her from. But also, here's a quick question. So we find out that Frank gets his haircut from Suzanne Summers, right? Do we think that possibly they met because he was the contractor who turned her garage into the salon?
Or he was the one that converted it from the funeral home to a salon.
Or he got a haircut and said, check out this bimbo.
Later on, we establish how long they've known each other, so I would say no, and we'll get to that in a minute. But
Oh,
yeah,
they do, don't they?
Yeah, they do. All right.
yeah. And when she gets inside, they immediately, by that I mean the mother and sister, start asking how Jamaica was. So apparently Carol just went on a trip recently, and she's very clearly dancing around the details of the trip, which immediately makes the two of them arrive at the idea that she met a man while she was out there. And they keep trying to like press her, and she's just avoiding it and denying that she met a guy at all. And Peggy says, why can't she ever meet a man, and how desperately she needs one. And no sooner does she say that, Frank walks in, and Peggy like looks up and thanks God.
Oh, old horny Peggy.
I was going to say, so she went on a vacation and they think that she met some long-term dude. She wasn't just going in and pounding the pavement, so to speak, down there. Like, you don't go down on to Jamaica on vacation and like meet this long-term relationship, or at least have that expectation.
Well, they didn't say that. All they really said was you met a guy, which could have just meant that there was a fling. That's all they said. You met a man while you were there.
Yeah, they didn't say like, and you brought him home or...
No, because I think the idea of, well, what we find out to be the case later is a little unexpected, but in theory, the idea of going to Jamaica and finding someone local is very unimaginable. So I think they just thought she kind of met, had a little fling while she was there.
That's how I perceived it. If she came home with Sanka from Cool Runnings.
You dead man.
It's like, it's so cold in Wisconsin. Well, they could have gone to hedonism.
They could have.
Right? Like, maybe they expected her, maybe they think she lied, right? Like, oh, she said she went to sandals, and she went to hedonism, which is the, like, no clothes sandals, right? So, like, at that point, you're probably not meeting somebody for the long term.
Right. Well, I was kind of under the impression that, in general, they just asking if she met a guy didn't necessarily mean there was any weight of seriousness to it. That's how I took it.
I also think it's strange they both went on vacation without their kids, and that's something people do. Like, I've taken trips with you guys without my son.
I was going to say, I was on a trip with you, like, 2 weeks ago.
Like a week ago.
But they each went alone. She didn't go with girlfriends or anything. She went on a trip to Jamaica by herself, and that was just strange to me.
I think this show in general has a lot of plot holes. There's a lot of unexplained things. Even as early as like when I said in the beginning of the episode with Frank and his kids, we don't know if the kids were in the house or out of the house because he says conflicting things in that like quick minute of dialogue.
It should have been she was supposed to get married and her hubby left her at the altar. So she went on the honeymoon anyway.
What a wacky idea.
But I feel like if that's the case, you have to find a way for him to go without just abandoning his kids too.
Right. No, they've already established he's not responsible.
True.
I guess that's true, yeah. And they do pitch pretty hard that one's responsible, one isn't. So you could ride that through.
It's almost like they're an odd couple. To bring another parallel to another show.
I didn't get a lot of odd couple vibes watching this one.
Except for the cereal part.
But when Frank shows up, he informs Peggy that he's there to see Carol. Carol offers him coffee before they get started with the haircut, which, I don't know, is it too common of a practice? But I guess when your house is attached to the salon, why not?
See, this is weird to me too, though, because I feel like you'd have a coffee maker in the salon part, or you'd go in and bring coffee out to the person. Bringing somebody into your kitchen feels like crossing a weird line.
Well, a lot of lines were crossed, Joe.
That's true.
Considering the outcome, it makes sense. So she offers him a coffee. He offers to help her with that. They head into the kitchen area together, leaving the salon. As soon as the door shuts, they start making out immediately.
So hold on. If you say, I'm going to go get you a coffee, and you say, I'm going to go help, nobody else there wasn't like, yo, you're going to be going laying pipe down there. Like, don't be laying pipe. You got people in.
No, where is your brain for half of this? I don't think it's that odd for him to just be like, yeah, I'll help you get the coffee.
Here, stranger, let me just go into your house and help me get me some coffee.
A,
you're laying pipe.
He's not a stranger. B, he's a carpenter, not a plumber, so he would not be laying pipe.
They know who he is. They all know him. They just don't know the extent of this relationship between them.
Yeah. I also get that this is a fairly small town and everybody knows everybody to a degree. And he's a client of like a long-term client because when he walks in, Penny's like, oh, hey, Frank.
3 months. 3 months is not an establishing thing that you go in and help. Because prior, he never went and helped her make coffee. So, yeah.
I think you're reading it we read into stuff too deep. I think you are severely overthinking this specific aspect.
It wouldn't throw me, but I also get my haircut from a friend
who
owns a salon. So he's like, want to come get coffee with me? I wouldn't be like, people are going to think we're making out now. I'd be like, yeah, sure.
Even though you are making out.
I mean, obviously, how do you think I pay for the haircuts?
What I thought was weird is now as they are making out, they pause for a second and she tells him that she wants a divorce. And so you think that the next line is going to be like from her current husband, not from him, because obviously the mother and sister would recognize if she was married, and that was her husband who just walked in the door. And then he mentions that, we've only been married for 36 hours. I've had dates that have gone on longer than that. So apparently, as we find out, they got married in Jamaica.
And they just got married. Because if they've been married for 36 hours, to fly from Jamaica to Wisconsin with certainly at least one layover, because there's no direct flight that goes from Wisconsin to Jamaica, means that they woke up one morning, had coffee, had some Eggos, got married, and then screwed to the airport to go home. That doesn't make any sense. If they were we've been married for 72 hours, you'd be like, oh, they got married, had one passionate night, and then flew home. 36 hours is cutting it very, very close.
It was the last night of the trip.
Yeah, something about that's not right.
It's they got married by a deacon on the plane or something.
No, they had to have gotten drunk early and then spent most of the trip together. They don't tell you how long the trip was.
The marriage itself had been at the tail end of the trip.
I don't get the impression that they're drunks, though.
They mentioned sexy pink drinks. I imagine they were a little buzzed.
Okay, all
There
right.
was an impulsive drink. It's the typical Vegas wedding thing. It's one of those.
I was going to say, wouldn't it make more sense that they went to Vegas instead of Jamaica? Because I didn't know Jamaica did that.
Not necessarily. I just think it was an impulsive thing, because she goes on to say, she doesn't know why she acted so impulsively. And then she starts reflecting and thought maybe it was the magic of the islands or the
she just saw
moonlit nights.
Patrick Duffy and she was like, ooh, I'm going to marry that.
I mean, to be fair, obviously, 1991 Patrick Duffy and, conversely, 1991 Suzanne Summers, everybody's going, okay, sure.
But as she's reflecting on all this stuff, like I was saying, and then also the pink drinks that were mentioned, and she's kind of getting lost in the romance of that whole situation again. And then, horny Frank replies with, for me, it was that little teeny bikini. And then they just start to make out again. And this continues with her saying that, she's afraid that their relationship is purely sexual. And he replies with, well, we can build on that. So it's this whole thing is kind of he's so lost in being attracted to her. And this situation is crazy. And she's starting to come down from that high of the trip. But he is just so horned out. He does not want to lose this situation at all.
He is definitely horned out. And you could maybe make the claim that they got married, quote unquote, in Jamaica. Does that really technically apply in the United States? If she wanted to, she could just be it's not legally recognized here.
It's weird she wants a divorce and not an annulment.
Yeah, I think these are, again, this is an establishing episode, but I think this is these are little nitpicky things that I think, again, we're our show, we overanalyze and kind of look into this stuff. But yes, should she have said annulment? Should it have been on the state side?
But I feel saying divorce is like saying Coke, right? An annulment is like saying tab, right? People everywhere are going to know what a divorce means. You might get some people who are like, what's an annulment? And then you lose them, right?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
No, that's fair.
And tab is gross, and so are annulments.
It is. My grandmother used to drink that shit.
It's gross.
It's fucking disgusting. She used to put fucking napkins in it, save it for later. Flat
Oh,
tab.
no.
Flat tab, even worse.
Nah, I like a good moxie.
Oh,
Oh, God.
you picked the one drink worse than tab.
I would take a tab over a moxie any day.
I would too.
Anyways, when, they continue to talk, she says, she doesn't even really know him. And that's when he says, as we referred to earlier, no, you've been cutting my hair for 3 months now. It's well, okay, 3 months. I mean, even you've only known the person 3 months. Forget a relationship of 3 months. And Carol continues on with, the whole fantasy of it all and how them randomly finding each other in Jamaica was so romantic. And this is when Frank tells her that it wasn't as much of a coincidence as she may believe. And he actually talked to her travel agent, got all the details of where she was going, when, what flight she was going to be on, and followed her there. And what the fuck?
You know what's really funny and comedical? That's not even a word, but comedical.
That's not a word, but go ahead.
Stalking. Yeah, that's totally something to make a funny haha. I totally stalked you internationally. You could get hit by Interpol.
90s. Oh, early 80s, late 80s.
No, I think Ferg's right on this one. It's the 90s, right? This is the kind of thing where now you have a great point. We look at this and go this is fucking creepy, man.
This
But
is
in
a dark
1991,
comedy
they were
on Netflix, yeah.
It's weird and kind of romantic that he followed her. But when we think about it now, it's that's so weird.
The thing is, I think it's written to be creepy, even in context of the show. And the joke is that she found it romantic. Well, you're expected to be oh, she's gonna freak out. She goes, that is so romantic. Like,
What's even worse about it is he's being creepy while they're together too, being like, no, baby, it's okay. We'll learn to like love each other and stuff. Like, what a weird fucking thing.
listen, he's a single dad with 3 kids. You fucking meet a fucking girl there, and by the way, I have 3 kids. Bye. Like, he probably hasn't banged anyone in since his wife died. I assume his wife is dead. So
At least she's dead to him.
he found fucking Suzanne Summers. He's like, I'm making this work.
What I want to see is the deleted scene where he says, "How did you find all this out?" She's like, "I asked your assistant, I asked your flight, what do you call her?
Velma or
Travel
Thelma?
agent Velma." Right? We're like, is there a dark scene where he's got Velma tied up and he's like, "Tell me where she went or I kill the dog." He's like, "Tell her, please. Tell her to make it."
Oh, it's that Velma. Okay.
That's in my head. Please. Don't tell him anything.
They're talking. What he's saying right now is extremely creepy, and I think it's being overlooked. Not really overlooked. We're addressing it, but the weight of what he did was so strange and should be so off-putting. And the fact that she finds it endearing and romantic maybe speaks volumes to how lonely she is.
My
as
jaw
well.
dropped. I was like, what? Wait,
Yeah.
what?
That's a weird reveal. Yeah. Actually, it's not a funny story. I asked your travel agent. Also, she should be fired. Velma should be fired immediately for that. You can't give away everyone's travel information
That's a breach.
like that.
It's a bit of a breach.
Right? Well, not only that, but first of all, how creepy is it that you knew who your travel agent was? So this dude has been stalking her for a good while.
No, you talk to your barber when you're getting a haircut. He probably made
Oh
some
yeah, I'm
small
going
talk.
away.
I think we're also under the impression it's a very small town. There's one travel agent.
Velma.
Uh-oh.
Not
But no, I think-
no.
I think in reality, yeah, he's sitting there. He's been getting his hair cut for the last 3 months. He probably keeps an ear out, so not even when they're talking directly, she's walking around, she's talking to her sister or whatever about the trip. He's kind of eavesdropping, catching little details here and there.
Yeah, make it way creepier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's listening in.
Look at the giant peewee ear. Listening to Velma.
Maybe he's, rigged something up.
I imagine, though, it's just the gossip around town, right? We all grew up in a very small town, and we were kids when this show came out. I think if somebody mentioned something at the coffee shop, the school, one of the hair salons, it circled around, right? We just didn't realize it because we were kids. I think that just, word gets around. If someone's leaving a small town to go someplace exotic like Jamaica in 1991, it's probably, an interesting topic of conversation.
Especially if they're leaving their 3 children home alone.
No. The 3 kids for her have the sister and the
Yeah,
mom.
sister and mother are
Okay,
right there.
all right.
She's responsible. It's sexy Patrick Duffy who fucked this all up.
Yeah, that's kind of the big question marks is with him.
Yeah, so he fucking left his children, stalked her, went there, got her drunk, married her.
Whoa, hold on. You're making some reaches now. We've already covered.
No, I've heard enough to believe that at this point.
I don't know if we can just say he got her drunk. I think they were on a trip. I think there's a point where we can acknowledge that what he did was extremely creepy, but I don't think we should assume above and beyond that to a super weird level. I think it's creepy on its own right without us having to take any leaps.
I will say I'm a little sad though that Patrick Duffy came back. He didn't have a little bead with the Jamaican flag in the back of his ear like Michael Scott.
Just the one strand. So she keeps flashing back and trying to be logical about how all of this is going. And again, horny Frank just keeps trying to justify everything. And she, she's like, none of our kids even have met. How does this even work? And Frank's like, okay, the best plan now is to just get all the kids to meet, and then we'll start to date for a while, and then get engaged, and after an acceptable amount of time, get married. All while being married the whole time secretly. And then he goes, 2-3 days? And then it just kind of, there's that fade out shot of him giving her a hug, but she looks nervous and confused.
I mean, it's a bad idea, right? All in all, I mean, look, probably don't lie to your kids that much, I guess, is probably a safe bet, but also...
Oh, Joe, you gotta lie to your kids.
No, I mean, lying to your kids
That's
is
the
probably
fun of
important
being
in
a
some
parent.
ways, but this is a tiny town. Do they think this is not going to get out? I feel like it's going to be way worse of a scenario when Frank tells somebody at the coffee shop and then it gets out to one of the kids because their parent were, it's going to be a telephone game.
This is one of those towns where every marriage is documented in the town paper.
Well, if they're married there, you have to submit that stuff, though.
Yeah. I will say this, because I didn't think it was strange that he went and helped her with the coffee. I would say maybe a little strange that the mother and sister didn't find it odd that they just didn't come back.
They were
Maybe
gone
that-
for 10 minutes.
That might have been the weird part.
There should have been a scene where instead of ending where it did, open the door and they're both listening at the door or something like that.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Well, maybe they went in there and it turns out that Frank had taken the coffee pot off while the coffee wasn't all the way done brewing yet, and she murdered him like a reasonable adult would do.
From this scene, we get to, it's like the following day, and now the Lamberts are driving over to the Foster's house for a barbecue. And when they get to the door, Carol and two of the kids are there to greet them. And she's so nervous she even like messes up her own son's name when introducing them.
That's a callback to earlier when the two of them are in the kitchen because he says the name wrong first.
Correct.
Yeah, I love that they called that back. I thought that was actually a nice little touch because Frank corrects them.
Yes. And Al, who's Frank's daughter, even calls Carol out on how nervous she's acting in this moment. And now Dana, who's the oldest daughter of Carol, heads down the stairs and immediately recognizes JT, who apparently put a dead rat in her locker at school.
No, he put a live rat in her.
Well, right. Well, that's what
Died
she
in the
accuses of
locker.
him. JT replies by saying, "The rat was alive when I put him in there. Your gym socks must have killed him."
Zing.
And I'm like, not only am I confused as to why Horny Frank isn't mad about this, but how is he not even aware of this? Like, the school didn't call after this happened? This is like a serious type of thing.
This is prank 90s, man. Think of a show like Parker Lewis Can't Lose, right? Or something like that around the same time. That was just about, do you guys not remember Parker Lewis Can't Lose?
I don't remember it either, but I figured
Jesus
he would
Christ.
call you out
Okay,
first.
We'll talk about that later. Okay, Saved by the Bell. Think of a darker Saved by the Bell, a more realistic Saved by the Bell, where everything wasn't like a crazy...
Oh, the
Never
darker
mind, just
version.
move on. I'm so
Saved
mad
by
about
the
that.
hell.
I'm just saying that 30 years ago, that's the kind of thing where it's like, kids are being kids.
Yeah. But I found it a little strange that, Frank didn't even really know about this. Usually the school at least give a call. But, so anyways, Horny Frank doesn't even seem to care because he just is trying to get, let's blow past this story. And, he just goes like, great, so you two already know each other. And, he just sends everyone off. Like, let's get to this barbecue.
I know that she calls him Rat Boy, too, which I immediately thought of The Simpsons. There's like a few Simpsons moments in this, but The Simpsons, who could forget Dear Rat Boy? Bart, stop gnawing on the drywall. When she called him Rat Boy, I had like 2 or 3 minutes where I was like, oh, fuck, that's all I'm going to think about all night now.
And then we cut to the backyard where this barbecue's underway, and Peggy, who's Carol's sister, is admiring Al's necklace. And then she tells her that she didn't steal it and that her dad got it for her in Jamaica. And then as she walks off, Peggy's like, Jamaica. So now she realizes that they were both there at the same time. And to go back, I know this whole scene was just a device to kind of get to Peggy finding out Frank was in Jamaica. But I think it's important to note that the necklace that she has on, she is not wearing right before that when they get to the house.
Continuity issue.
Like, how do you not, like, if you know that the next scene is going to focus on the fact that she has this necklace on, why is she not wearing it when she walks in the door?
Maybe it was tucked in.
It's too thick.
Hear me out, because she didn't put on the necklace beforehand. That's why they accuse her of stealing it.
Maybe.
Think about it.
But no one accused her of stealing it. It was just Al jumping to conclusions because I think she's...
Yeah, she's supposed to be the troublemaker.
Yeah, she's
the
like a little bit...
angsty one.
Yeah, so she's just always on the defense.
So I want to say this though. They didn't. I get they didn't want them to know that they got married, but they could have kept with the truth is, oh, we met in Jamaica. It was a crazy coincidence.
And we got to
both on
become,
this trip.
and that's why we're friendly now. So we got to be friends while we're out there because we saw each other. Yeah.
That's
Or
why
even
we're
easier.
dating now. Like
Jamaica is it's not one town, right? Like they could each have been in Jamaica, been like, oh, well, we went to the one-man airport. We had a flight together.
We
Turns
met in
out we were-
Kingston.
Well, not even that. We had seats next to each other on the plane home. We were chatting, and now we're friends. There's nothing sexual here, but we had a 12-hour flight together.
Right.
And we thought, hey, we've got kids who are the same age. Let's have a barbecue. Like, that's an easy lie.
Yeah.
And they just they fudge it.
Put Horn Doggo over there, but all he can think about is Suzanne Summers in that teeny bikini. So he needs to go and...
The thing is, they could have told the full truth sans the marriage. They could have told everything.
Yes. No,
Well,
exactly.
leave
I
out the
think
stalking, but the rest of the truth.
we've covered all types of different shows. And I think when we do these kind of older, more classic family-style sitcoms, they're the ones that you can pick apart the most when you really go over the details. because they really are just trying to drive in a basic point. Let's get you from A to B. And some of these little details that we're covering now don't make sense. And it definitely happens with these types of shows more than some of these more established shows that are a little bit more cinematic.
You don't question shit in the 90s. You were just busy being rad.
Exactly.
It's true. I was busy ripping bongs in skate parks all day long in 1991. But it's, I mean, again, look, I think that nothing should be made to hold up to scrutiny or thought of that way when it wasn't, right? Like, there wasn't on-demand playing. We talk about this all the time. Nobody thought people were going to watch a TV show like this under a fucking microscope. You know what I mean? It was just establish everything, make people laugh, and be out in 24 minutes minus the theme song.
Yeah, I mean, I never even saw this episode, so maybe they figured, hey, no one will even see this.
That's a great point, actually, because pilots oftentimes aren't even seen, right? They're just like, or they're shown in the middle of the summer or in sweeps weeks, and then you don't hear about it. You see a commercial for a show and you start watching it, right? I never saw the first episode of Seinfeld before other episodes of Seinfeld. You sort of like work your way into the knowledge.
Yeah, a lot of times the pilot will get aired, but the pilot and then episode 2 are like filmed with a big gap in between them because the pilot comes out, they retool a little bit. We want more of this, less of that.
Especially with this, because Frank is way less horny later in the show. He's just like a stereotypical sitcom dad later.
Yeah, they definitely knocked that down a little.
Sorry to break rules, but it's what I do.
But yeah, maybe the network went maybe a little too much. We're trying to be a little wholesome here.
Keep it in your pants, Duffy.
Maybe that was his thing, maybe that was his one clause from Dallas. Be like, I get to play the horny dad.
He's like, I want to be in a sitcom, but I want to be dripping with cum the entire time. They're like, fuck it, Patrick.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Am I wrong though?
Yes, I think so. But,
I don't think I'm wrong.
But moving along.
Those BVDs are stiff.
Frank and JT are talking while grilling some burgers. And he asks his son, what he thinks of Carol. JT tells him that, date her, but don't get involved. And he tells him that, you could do better than that bimbo. And I want to talk about the fire that's also happening because they have this like little charcoal grill that he just squirts actual lighter fluid into that causes like a legitimate actual fire. And we've talked about this in past episodes, like when we did Thanks over Thanksgiving. You, again, in today's world, would not have an actual fire like that. You would not allow...
be CG'd in.
You would not allow an actor to squirt actual like lighter fluid into a fire to make it rise up like that.
Dallas clause.
Listen, man, Patrick Duffy is
I want to be dripping
with
with cum and I want fire everywhere. It's like, okay. Patrick Duffy, actually, the year before this, did try out for the Billy Baldwin role in Backdraft and didn't get it. So he was feeling a little left out and had to do this.
I was emasculated after I didn't get the Backdraft role. Let me barbecue.
They gave it to De Niro. Fuck. Give me Suzanne Summers and a bottle of lighter fluid.
Also, not to over dissect, but when the burgers were ready, he just dumps like water all over the fire to put them out. And
you said they were grilling, and to which I say, no, they were not. He was not grilling anything.
It goes back to the joke that happens later. It's like, look, we're having ashes for dinner.
Yeah. But you could just, shut the grill or just pull the burgers off because it would, the fire would eventually go down. I would never dump water all over my burger before eating it.
I don't know how to turn off that kind of grill. It's not like a modern grill. There's no it's just...
So we had one of those as a kid growing up, and what you do is you turn there's little vents on the
so you
roof.
Just cut it off
you just shut it, and then on the sides there's vents too, and you just shut those, and then you shut the lid,
and then you keep usually a little tray under the bottom so that when like the embers fall out from it, they don't catch the ground on fire, and then eventually the rocks just go out.
Fire needs oxygen to breathe.
Yeah.
So
I put out my candles. I'm so manly.
So yeah, you take away the oxygen and the fire will eventually go away.
Serenity by Ferg.
And so Frank then puts the burgers on the table and they are straight up hockey pucks. And Dana goes like you were just saying a second ago, oh, look, Mom, we're having ashes for lunch.
They should be used to it because they live in a funeral home.
Well, speculative. But the another classic sarcastic Dana line. But I thought the word choice was kind of bad to say we're having ashes because it's still like a solid object. I think you should have just said we're having charcoal. Go with the hockey puck thing or say that we're having charcoal.
Works. Charcoal works, yeah. Oh, is it Christmas? Because Santa just gave us a bunch of coal. Like Santa Frank just delivered us coal. Like ashes doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't at all. But and just to pivot real quick, how do you guys take your burgers? What's your preferred cooking temp there?
All my meat is medium rare. Burgers, steaks, everything.
I go medium well.
I do
Ew.
medium well as
What's wrong
well.
with you?
Oh, come on, guys. I'm medium rare as well, and sometimes I go full rare. And I think we might have had this steak conversation,
I
so we
think
might
we
have said the
have.
same things.
I'll do medium if it's like a good cut of steak. I'll do medium because I like the
Still
the
too
juice.
much. Still too
See,
much.
I don't know. I don't like the texture of like rare meat. Like I couldn't never do like a blue rare.
Gordo, you've had kitchen jobs in restaurants. Like, you should understand
I
that,
understand.
like,
I
the
just
flavor is,
personally-
you're depleting the flavor the more you cook it.
not if you do it medium well.
Nope.
No, it's very
Nope.
much. You're killing it medium
No,
well.
I like medium well. There's a way to do it where they're still pink in the middle. Here's my thing though: is I will cook things a lot more rare myself than I trust another cook. You know what I mean? Like at a restaurant, I don't want someone to give me a medium rare burger because I don't trust him as much as or her as
I
much as
just
me
don't
with
like
the
the
grill.
juices in a burger. I don't like the juices dripping down in a burger. For a steak, that's fine. For a steak, I'm okay with it. But for a burger, like when you bite into that medium and it's just like juice comes down, no.
Mm-mm-mm.
I'm with Gordo on this one.
Weeds the juice. No, he's in the juice.
You like it a juice? The juice is good. Huh?
Unfortunately, we don't have Nick to be the tiebreaker on this debate, but I guess we're
No,
split
Nick
there.
Nick likes medium rare too. He makes fun of your brother how he cooks steaks with us all the time.
Overcooked steaks, yeah. Well, yeah, not to get into that for too long, but
What kind
You
of
know-
toppings do you like on your burgers?
we've definitely had this.
We definitely had this
right?
conversation. Yeah,
I think maybe the wings episode we've talked about this.
I think
But
so. Yeah,
Lettuce, tomato,
Nope.
bacon.
Oh yeah, bacon.
Yeah,
Definitely
Bacon is-
bacon.
of course,
Lots of bacon.
I'm okay with
so we
mayonnaise.
talked about this before. How about this?
Yeah.
What kind of cheese do you like on your burger, or do you no cheese?
It depends on the burger.
Yeah, it depends on the burger. Depends on the toppings. I think if I was just gonna have a burger with cheese on it with nothing else, probably go with like a cheddar.
Cheddar or American for a plain burger.
I
Yeah.
usually go American for most.
But American has to be like a deli American, not a like craft singles.
No.
So-
It has to be deli American, and it has to be actually cut by the people there, not like the ones they prepackaged earlier that day, because it makes a difference.
There also needs to be enough for me to eat some of the cheese while I'm cooking the burger.
1,000% yes. I
Yeah.
eat more cheese while cooking burgers than burgers. It's just like, well, the cheese is here. I'm gonna keep taking slices of this.
So
off.
growing up, my mom always insisted on having the cheese of the deli sliced thin, and she would really stress that. So they would slice it unnecessarily thin, and then when you bring it out next to a grill and it's a little warmer,
It just melts.
it just makes it impossible to
To
like
peel.
rip the pieces apart. Yeah, now you
Yeah.
just have a block of cheese. It's like, why did you do this? This is so unnecessary.
The butcher's like, oh, we got her.
Yeah, she'll say, can you please slice it thin and then put 2 to 3 slices on the burger because it's so thin. It's like you've defeated the purpose completely.
You can always tell the pro at the deli counter is the one when you order a pound of cheese, they make a pyramid where they go up, bigger chunk, and then down. Because then you can always peel it no matter what. When somebody
Yeah.
gives you a pound of cheese and it's all that big and it's like June or something, and you're like, I'm going to walk this to the car. By the time you get home, it's always one big chunk, and it's like a total nightmare.
I understand that it should be very obvious because you're doing literally the same thing all day, every day. But whenever I watch like the person at the deli not have to weigh it and just knows exactly how much like the pound is.
Oh, yeah, like, that's
They
3
drop
quarters.
it,
They
yeah.
move on.
Yeah, I mean, when I used to do that, like make sandwiches and shit, like you just get a feel for how much like an ounce is, how much is this. But to get to your point, I like Swiss. Swiss is good. And blue cheese too, like
On
blue
a
cheese
burger?
crumbles. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do blue cheese. It makes me like sick immediately.
Other than the ones I named, the only other cheese I've really put on burger would be pepper jack.
Pepper jack.
I do like
Gouda's
pepper jack.
good too because it's smoky.
You would say that it's Gouda. We're not going to talk about Fromunda cheese, right?
Nope.
No.
So anyways, after a little bit of dialogue between Carol's mother and sister, she calls everybody over because it's time to eat. And we hear a scream from Karen, who's the middle child of Carol, the brunette one, the self-centered one. We haven't talked about her much because she hasn't really said much.
And she just talked about her zit the entire
Yes.
episode.
And she comes over to inform her mom that Frank's daughter Elle, who she calls a little midget, got ketchup all over her dress. And
90s.
when Carol's like trying to like see it, it's like an insignificant, if anything, there. And she shows her like this maybe minuscule dot on her dress that we as the viewer can't see. And it seems like Carol can't even spot it. but Karen is having a fit over it. Al tells her that it was an accident, and if she meant to get ketchup all over her, she would have done this, and then legitimately squirts ketchup all over her.
They have a Zoolander level ketchup fight in this scene, which I love.
And then you kind of get this back and forth now, and then Dana defends her sister and says, "Stop it, you little criminal." JT responds, but, don't call my sister a criminal, jerk face. And then takes the ketchup and now squirts Dana. And to go back, I want to mention how much I love the term jerk face.
A bunch of step siblings saying jerk face at each other right now. I was having a sweat moment.
But
oh boy.
I just want to point out that this show, each kid, they have every stereotype of a sitcom kid ever. They got their nerd, they have the superficial one, the witty one, the angsty one.
The gross one, because the other little kid is like the gross kid.
They covered every stone because there's 6 of them.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And they kind of overdid it with them a little bit too, because there were points where I want to say Dana, every time she was about to speak, you knew it was going to be just something sarcastic, and it's fine.
Very
but,
Chandler.
Yeah, it's enough. You can be normal once in a while. You don't have to just speak in one-liners. But in any event, this results in a full-on food fight, right? And the parents are making a very half-assed attempt to stop any of this, and food's flying everywhere. And that's when Peggy, the aunt, says, "I bet you two wish you were still both back in Jamaica," before taking a bite of her hockey puck burger. And it was so odd the way it happened, because it was like I said, chaos with the food fight, and the parents kind of trying to stop them, but they can't because they're trying to shoot the food fight. So they need they can't be too forceful because it has to keep going. So they just have to be like, "Wait, stop." But the aunt is just in a moment of bliss about to eat. She's about to eat her burger. So I think she's just so excited.
The worst burger in the world, too.
Yeah. And she just casually says this line, almost to herself. She doesn't say it loud enough considering the chaos, but it stopped absolutely everything that was going on, because now everyone knows that the two of them were in Jamaica together.
Real record scratch moment.
Yeah, this is a very record scratch moment. It's a great point.
And I don't know. I feel like the mom could have told the actual truth, because they did. She did say we booked, we went there separately, but she could have been a little more honest in this moment, but she came off
your
super
father's a
guilty.
creep.
Yeah. No, Frank followed me.
Big horny bird.
But even then, it was from Carol's perspective, she legitimately booked a trip to Jamaica by herself without any knowledge that anyone else would be there that she knew. But yet in this moment, she seemed so guilty about the fact that her and Frank were both there, but she could have told the truth, not maybe omit the marriage part, but could have been honest with them, and it would have caused way less questions.
Yeah, look, I think there's a big problem we've come up a bunch of times in this episode, is just they just didn't have to lie so much, and this whole thing would be so much easier. And this scene, I think, just points out so much more, where it's there wouldn't have to have been such a big reveal if you were just "Hey, fuck, we met, we're dating. You're gonna go meet them, be on your best behavior because we're dating," right? Most kids would adhere to the best behavior thing at that point.
Yeah.
Not horny Frank's terrible, kids.
The moral of the story is honesty is the best policy.
The more you know. Do-do-do.
And then during all this, JT goes, "Oh, I know why you were defending the bimbo earlier. It's because you're already dating her." And Frank's like, "You watch your mouth, young man. She is not a bimbo, and we're not dating. We're married." And that's when it cuts to the mom and sister, who have this complete shocked, open mouth gasp. And it just holds on them more, which I thought was weird. You probably should have focused on the kids' reactions, but it just showed the two of them for a while.
And I'm assuming that's the picture that HBO is using as the profile picture that Ferg saw.
And then it cuts, the scene kind of cuts with everyone just looking around at each other, because that's the big reveal. Now everyone knows that they're married.
It's kind of a crappy reveal. You should have said you shouldn't talk to your mother that way.
Could have been like that. I mean, either way, I think the shock was there. They didn't, because he reveals that they're married, but yeah.
Yeah, but then what if she was stepmother? And I was like, oh no, this show's going in a weird direction, right? You can't go there.
Stepmother, what are you doing?
There's ketchup all over your clothes. Go take a shower. Okay, stepmother.
I'd do anything for those concert tickets.
I just feel that he doesn't get mad enough at his son for calling her a bimbo in front of her. Even if they weren't married, it's like you were invited to this person's house. You have terrible manners calling her a bimbo.
Him saying watch your mouth was like the most of a parent he has been in this whole episode.
He does act well in it, though. He snaps and says that, and you do like feel like there is a bit of authority to it, but the only time the whole
for
episode.
A brief moment.
Yeah.
The fact that they were throwing food all over, like, you know,
a stranger's
their guests.
house?
Yeah, it's like they're guests at this house, and they're squirting ketchup on the kids who live there and throwing food everywhere. Like, as a parent, how are you not fucking mortified by how your children are acting right now?
Belt would be coming off at that point.
You're making me look bad in front of my wife, who's already kind of on the fence about this. My fucking stupid kids, like.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you, considering how horny and how much Frank wants this to work out, you'd think that he would have, scared them straight or something to make it seem like, don't fuck this up. That's just me.
I feel like this is reminding me weirdly of, not to go into a weird direction, but in the movie Step Brothers, right, when the parents meet each other, right? She's like, I've got a 40-year-old kid. He's like, I've got a 40-year-old kid, right? Like, I imagine at some point in Jamaica, she was like, oh, my 3 kids. And he was like, my 3 kids. And they like bonded over it and then realized later, like, oh, we bonded over this, but this is going to become a logistical nightmare for actual
It was
lives.
more Frank, like, hey, nice bikini. These drinks are good.
She's like, I've got 3 kids. He's like, I'm just looking at that bikini, girl.
These are
and he got on the
good.
plane and was like, shit.
You got 3 kids? I can't tell with that figure.
Yeah.
It's like, Thigh Master? Is that what that is?
But yeah, anyways, the next scene is we're getting another establishing shot of the Foster's house. Only now the title card has the her crossed out in her house, and it says their house. So now we know the Lamberts are moving in. So we see the truck pull up with the 4 of them in it and all their belongings. And the Fosters all walk out to greet them. And Dana says, my God, here comes the Jode family. So I had to
Good
look
joke.
this up. I didn't get the joke. I had
Really?
to look it up. No, I have never read The Grapes of Wrath.
We read it in school.
Yeah, we're in
I didn't-
school. They reference it in Ninja Turtles. Like, it's pretty present.
Well, in any event, I've never read The Grapes of Wrath, and so I did not understand what this reference was. And I thought that, maybe it was just me who didn't get it, but I thought that joke was a little too over the heads for a simple sitcom like this.
But again, though, maybe not 30 years ago, right? Like, because I feel like even the Grapes of Wrath movie at that point is probably only 20 years old, right? So it's more present in culture.
I was also super distracted by the packing job, which was very impressively stacked on that truck.
It was for how many people were moving in?
They turned a pickup truck into like a U-Haul. It was like huge, but it was still a pickup truck.
That's
I was
true.
I
like,
do wish
wow.
that one of them was on top of a rocking chair like Granny Clampett.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Pretty great.
Well, not a lot of stuff for 4 people moving in. And it's kind of addressed after because Carol's daughters ask if, they're rushing into things and having to move in so fast, and that it's a little bit of a red flag that these people can just up and move on a day's notice, which are both solid points. I think it's fair for what both of these daughters are saying right now.
Well, let's be fair too. Also, somebody's making room on a day's notice for 4 people moving in.
Yeah, how many bedrooms are in this house, right? Because we don't establish that in this episode, but we're assuming that these 3 kids have their own bedrooms, and now they're being told you're going to have to share a bedroom with your other...
Brother from another mother.
Well, I guess it wouldn't be by age, though, right? Because, like, JT and her aren't going to stay... But, again, you're going to have to start sharing a room all of a sudden with these random people. That's not going to be fun for anybody. They don't have 6 bedrooms upstairs, right? They probably have 4.
And this is even before Cody's living there in his van on in the back.
Yeah, well, he doesn't need a bedroom, though. But unfortunately, that's later on, so we can't talk about it. But, yeah, so... Horny Frank's kind of oblivious to everything that's going on, and he's just trying to act like everyone's just in good spirits, and he's just trying to have a positive spin on everything. And as they start moving things inside, you hear another scream from Karen, this time because the Lamberts are bringing a literal pig into the house with them, and Al calls her a wuss and says she probably wets her pants every time she hears thunder. Yeah, I think moving a pig into the house is a little much.
Sorry, but it's a baby piglet. It's adorable. And not only this reaction, but one little later, they act like it's a rat in the house. Like,
you're not
Like-
expecting to see a pig in your house, in all fairness, though. I can understand being a little spooked
Without
by it.
warning.
90s though. Because look, Clarissa explains it all. She had the alligator.
alligator named Elvis.
There's got to
Wow,
be some
wow.
other shows that I can't think of off the top of my head that had weird animals. That was like a thing in
Pig
the
movies
90s.
were all the rage too. We had
I
Babe Pig in
actually
the
feel
City,
like-
Gordy.
Yep,
It's more
that'll do.
likely
Gordy,
to find
I
out.
forgot about Gordy.
It's more likely to find out that someone has a pet pig now, I think, versus
No,
30 years ago.
No. I mean, there's so many Instagram pages that I feel like that's kind of commonplace. But who the fuck doesn't say, yo, by the way,
Wait, well, hold on. Before you go on, you said no and then defended my point, saying that it's more commonplace now.
It is more commonplace now.
Then why'd you say no?
Because that's just my vernacular, Jay.
Okay, okay.
So what I was going to say was that what is even worse is that you would just be like, oh, by the way, I'm bringing a pig. Like, who the fuck doesn't say that up front except Horny Frank and the boys?
I imagine he thought it would be a sticking point, so he just was like, we've got a lot of funny stuff, but we won't bring everything over, blah, 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 and then just showed up with it.
There should have been a
knowing-
line. I told you I was bringing a pig. Oh, I thought you meant JT. Like, that's something
Yeah, you
stupid.
could've-
That's a
Oh,
terrible
yeah.
thing to say about your son.
Well, he's a rat boy, though.
Or Dana could have been like, oh, great, so now 2 pigs are moving in.
Right, yeah, I feel like they could
okay,
have...
all right.
You're both of you have better points there, yeah. Better writing on both those.
And we need a time machine. We can go back and write some serious sitcoms.
No, what people need to do is just see us now and run their sitcoms by us before they go and pay us a consulting fee.
Free pigs for everybody.
And then Frank and Carol kind of end up alone in the living room after all this. And Carol tells him she doesn't think this is going to work out. The kids aren't getting along. She's been a nervous wreck. And they just don't like livestock that much. And Frank tells her, there's going to be an adjustment period, and tells her how a week ago they're both raising their kids alone and sleeping alone. And now Fate and Velma, the travel agent, has put them together.
I'm sorry,
And now
that's super manipulative, by the way.
Right. And now they're not alone anymore.
He
And-
knows she's lonely, and now he's preying on that.
Well, no, because I think he's lonely
Berg's
too.
right.
No, I'm not saying that
I know he's
not.
lonely too, but the way he's wording it is like he's really manipulating her because they should have just gotten the divorce. I know it works.
No,
out 'cause
so
the show goes on
again,
for
so I
years,
think,
but-
I think the idea behind it is the whole time, like, listen, I keep calling him Horny Frank. He's just trying to stay with her. But I think this whole point is terrible because although true, yes, we were both alone. In general, justifying a relationship just to combat loneliness is the worst reason to be involved with someone. To like not overly like make something serious of this, but in reality, you're lonely, I'm lonely, neither of us want to be lonely. Great. And that like on paper makes a lot of sense. Now we're together and we're not lonely anymore. But that cannot be the basis of your relationship and the reason that you're with somebody.
I think dating, you're correct, but I think that this comes from a time where possibly they come from a moral standpoint where, hey, we got married, we should try to make a go of this, right? Like, I think that's, again, a different thing now, but I think that they might be like, oh, we got married, we have to give it a shot.
We don't know the full origin story.
I was gonna say, by your logic, that means both original spouses have to be dead.
Yes.
Which we don't know, they could be.
we don't know.
We don't know.
That is a cheese-heavy area.
It'd be even better if they ran off together. And they were like, well, our exes are gone. Want to bang?
See, I would love that meeting where it's like they end up being like, oh, Greg and Susan, let's go to Jamaica and let's watch that pilot.
I would like to see maybe a show where a couple gets together because both of their spouses were cheating on them with, each other's significant other. And now these two are left alone and find a way to be together. And then there'd be all these kind of weird interjections with both their exes who are now a couple, and they could come in and out of the picture.
I mean, a spinoff called Second Time Around about the two spouses who left each other to be with each other
Yeah.
is a good spinoff.
Netflix, call us.
Yeah.
we
Can't be
will
any
write
worse
this.
than Country Comfort.
I'm not SAG authorized, but we'll work it out.
I got a SAG right here. Netflix wants to see that.
Well, there goes that sponsorship.
To be fair, Netflix is losing so much money right now. They might be like, we don't care, Gordo. We don't care what you say. We'll take it.
Hit us up, Peacock.
Yeah.
Okay. No, if he said if SAG was a problem for him, you're going to mention Peacock. I don't think you want to
Yeah.
go down that road.
Yeah, I don't think Netflix has a SAG issue because they're not TV.
I don't know how all that works. Anyways, before we get too deep into that, he then goes on to tell her that, everything's going to be okay and they're both going to be very happy because they love each other.
Super manipulative. He doesn't even know that she loves him. Like,
Well,
come
that's
on.
the thing. Again,
Come on.
they've only...
I'm guessing she said it to him too already, though. Look,
They probably
everybody in
have.
the world, for the most part, has been in a situation where they start.
Yeah, listen, I think a lot of the spin that you guys are taking is just anti-Frank, but I mean, listen, I don't think it's just he's being manipulative.
It's even. It's 100% 50. It's 50-50.
It's not even, though. She's the one having doubts, and he sees that. She's tried to end it a couple times, and now all these red flags are stacking
Hold
up.
on. If you remember earlier in the episode, early on, because I didn't mention this when it happened, when she's reflecting on the trip, when they first go to the kitchen to get coffee, and she's talking about, oh, the magical nights and the sand and the drinks, and she like drops her shirt down so he could start kissing her neck. Like, she's also very much into what's going on. She has lapses of judgment and she thinks clearly at times, but she also did this and she is going with it, and she allowed this man to move into her house with the kids.
She allowed herself to be manipulated, and I don't blame her
I bet
because
Frank's
that's not
got
what
three
you
other
do.
families that he followed with on vacation.
That's
Exactly.
the Spinhouse third time around and fourth time around, which we'll be working on as well.
And then the final episode, final season, where he is in jail for cyber stalking.
No, until we find out that like Frank has multiple wives from other women that he followed on their trips, and he's
Mainly
like,
in Dallas.
yeah.
Frank starts at the beginning, sorry, I'm from Utah. Like,
But no,
Mormons.
what I want to touch on is they've only known each other for 3 months. They've only been romantically involved for maybe a week at this point, tops, if that. Do not use the L word, you horny nutcase. Just think about that. You've only known
I
her
agree
for 3
with you,
months.
but that goes out the window when you've gotten married.
Yeah, I'm with
True.
Ferg also, but like, has anybody here not said they love somebody prior to 3 months of dating?
They've been dating for a week, tops.
3 months of knowing somebody and then dating for a week. I feel like it's you're
Nope.
in such a weird
No.
bubble. Like,
No,
you can't.
no,
I'm not
no,
saying it's
no.
right. I'm just saying you don't. They are in such a weird bubble that they decided to get married. They're throwing the L word around. You don't decide to get married and then not tell somebody you love them. That seems like a lower tier than getting fucking married.
It was a bizarre circumstance.
Like, if you get married and she's like, I love you, and he's like, I'm going to think about it for a while, but I'll get back to you and let you know, but I'm really like you. Like, that's not going to work. You said you're getting married to them. You're chomping
You
bits.
said I
you're
do.
married. You're saying love.
That's so early. It's so early.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying if you're married, you're going to say it. You're going to say we're in
Normal-
love, even
normal
if it's just to
situations.
justify.
Normal situations, if you're married after being in an established relationship with somebody, they're only a week into dating. Like,
They're
granted,
not
they're
dating,
married,
though. They're husband
Yeah,
and wife.
they're not dating.
Yeah,
but
that
they've
trumps
only
it.
been romantically involved for a week.
You can't say we're picking apart certain things and we can't do that, and then you pick this apart.
No, this is a major for me. You do not tell someone you love them a weekend.
I
Then
can't wait
everybody-
until the
Jay's
day you're
afraid
like,
of
I told her I
commitment.
loved her. I don't know what to do, because it's going to happen now. You've just jinxed yourself.
No. You do not throw that around.
I mean,
Well,
I agree, but
Like, you shouldn't, right? I mean, if you feel it, maybe you do. Some people do. But I'm just saying, people say they love each other very early in a relationship. I'm just saying, once you've decided to get married,
Yeah.
that's a different ballpark. You've hit a different threshold.
you've legally fucked yourself. Not only fuck the love, you've legally fucked yourself.
did Dharma and Greg tell each other they loved each other this early on?
I don't know. I've never watched Dharma and Greg.
We'll eventually do a Dharma and Greg episode. I have very
No,
little
they were
idea.
I
gay.
thought they were gay.
Oh, no, that's
Yeah.
Will and Grace.
That's Will and
My
Grace.
bad. I always have done that with those two shows.
Okay.
And Grace isn't gay, just Will.
I thought Grace was under
And
fire.
Jack. Yes. It's turning into a Gallagher bit.
I thought
So,
it was
um,
St. Elmo's fire. What are you talking about?
well, moving on now that Gordon. Anyways, again, this works on Carol, and they just start making out again until we hear another scream, and that's now Peggy running in because she's now seen the pig in the salon.
Exact. See? They act like it's a mouse. It's a
Again,
cute
if you're
little
not
pig.
if you're not expecting a pig to be in the house, that's a little frightening.
It makes me think of that episode of South Park when they're trying to grow Mr. Garrison's penis on a rat. So when it runs around, they keep going, eek, a penis, eek.
Yeah, it's just like that.
Just like
Like,
that.
Ferg, listen, like, I don't think a squirrel is a scary animal, but if I walk into my kitchen and a squirrel's running around, I'm probably going to be a little startled by it.
But a squirrel is an invasive rodent, so it makes sense. This is clearly a pet. There's not wild pigs running around.
And they shit everywhere.
Yeah, I understand they shit everywhere, but a lot of
Actually,
animals
pigs
do that.
are
But,
very
do they
clean.
bite? Are they aggressive? I don't know much about pigs as far as a domesticated version.
I think that I know that like wild pigs are like nasty, like boars and stuff. Like they're nasty. So I don't know. I imagine the domesticated ones are.
Yeah, but that's like comparing a dog to a wolf. It's completely different.
I mean, I guess that's true.
So anyways, we cut to the next morning, and Dana and Carol are in the kitchen setting up the table for breakfast.
We're talking about pigs now, Jay, and you cannot steer this conversation.
Maybe they just had truffles in the salon and the pig went to go eat.
So in any event, Dana and Carol are in the kitchen, and they're setting up the kitchen for breakfast. Frank runs downstairs and tells him about how he just took a shower and didn't have to dry himself off with socks. Again, painting himself as a very helpless man.
First of all, you're not gonna be. Do you think he's using clean socks or dirty socks?
No, he goes in there wearing his
So
socks, takes them off, showers, and then picks the dirty socks out and rubs his armpits.
How does he not have like what do they call like the
Athlete's armpit?
Like the jock itch? Is that
Oh,
it?
Jock Jams? Great album.
I would argue.
I like
how
Jock
does he,
Rock myself, but
More
Jock Jam
importantly,
has a place as
how
well.
does he not own a towel?
He's
I
got
think.
kids.
3 kids, yeah.
I got kids!
I think everyone's forgotten to grab a towel before, right? And then you come out of the shower and you're like, oh, I'm soaking wet and I've got nothing in here but like whatever I was wearing when I came in. But you don't use that as a towel. You try to drip dry and like find a towel.
Yeah, you go to where the towels are and ruin the bath mat. That's about it.
Right,
And if that happened, you wouldn't do it so habitually that the luxury of using a towel is something that you need to tell everybody about.
I'm going to say this. The show started with him throwing a plate away because it was so dirty and said, I'll buy new plates. So you think he does laundry?
Correct.
Or he buys white towels because they're like the cheap things you can buy at like whatever. And then they become so gnarly looking that he just throws them out and doesn't buy new ones. Yeah.
He's got to smell like feet though if he's using dirty socks to dry himself.
The cologne a lot of guys were using back then was potent.
Oh, like
So-
Aramis, yeah, Aramis was.
It's just Old Spice brute.
Yeah, I was going to say, that dude owns a bottle with a ship on it that he sprays on himself every day and it kills every smell.
So feet and Old Spice, so great.
He turns and incorrectly greets Dana, calling her Donna. And when she corrects him, he just kind of jokes it off by turning to Carol and confirming that Carol's her actual name. And this is all happening because Frank is avoiding all logic to keep his hot wife that he doesn't want to lose.
I mean, this is clearly motivated by sex and shelter. He wants to live in a nicer house and he wants to have sex with Suzanne Summers.
When you break down this episode the way we are, like, Frank without over, like, because I don't agree with everything you guys have said about him, but I think even at surface, the things that we are seeing without over analyzing, he's not a very likable guy. Even when he says like her name wrong, it's like he just comes off like a dick.
I do like this interaction though when he does get it right when she's leaving. Bye, Dana.
No. He is very charming when he says bye, Dana, for some reason. I don't know why, but it works.
I see what Suzanne saw in him. Just saying. With that.
It's the first time I feel like Carol actually kind of stepped up and like actually like
The breakfast conversation,
yeah,
right?
she's a little like out of the romantic haze, and she says, you know,
Honeymoon's
usually,
over.
Yeah, usually we all have breakfast together in the morning. And he says, how? And then she kind of just explains, we wake up at the same time, we get ready, and we just come downstairs and have breakfast. And he goes, that sounds pretty neat. And he sounded like an idiot when he said that. Like, he sounded like such a goofy dumbass. Wow, that's pretty neat how you guys all have breakfast together. It felt like that line was a little off for even his character at that point.
He missed her hint that she wants them to all eat together as a family.
Yeah, because Frank's kind of eating on the move. As soon as he ran downstairs, I think he just grabbed something off the table and was just kind of eating independently.
But aside from Frank, literally the first scene of this entire show is 3 of his family eating breakfast together.
Attempting to, had there been cereal in any of those boxes.
But sure, had there been food, that was what they were doing. It wasn't foreign to him.
Yeah, but it was independently of him. He wasn't part of the breakfast.
So you would think that the children would be like, oh man, there's food downstairs. Is that real bacon I smell?
That would have been good writing, yeah.
Yeah.
But make them eat like pigs.
Yeah. Well, when Al does walk down the
They're
stairs.
a pet. That's a pet. That's weird.
I didn't say
Eat like pigs.
They eat
It's
like pigs.
So when Al does walk down the stairs, she tells her dad she doesn't feel too good and doesn't think that she should go to school today. But she's kind of pulled this stunt before, so Frank's skeptical.
Yeah, this is a
And-
callback.
Yeah, and she tells him her stomach hurts, so he says, that's just because you haven't ate anything, and then he grabs some food off the table and kind of makes this makeshift breakfast sandwich that you guys referenced to
My
earlier.
one problem with this is at the beginning when she pulls this, his go-to is he feels her hair temperature and he goes, feels like a math test.
Yep.
This time he doesn't feel her head when she actually has a fever.
Well, yeah, but because it's so routine, I think this time he just was like, okay, again, we're going through it. And we're going through the motion. So, and had he done that, we can't get to the later point. So he kind of has to skip that step. But yeah, he just grabs like, what does he just call it? Like an egg thing, which was probably just like
It was like a quiche, right?
Yeah, grabs that off a plate. Yeah, and then he
this
just
should have been a red flag by her too, though, because you don't care about your kid. Your daughter almost died. Now you're in charge of my kids. It's another thing piled on the list of shit.
Also, I love egg sandwiches so much, but I wouldn't feed one to somebody who said their stomach hurt. That wouldn't be it's like, my stomach hurts. What should I do? Be like, eat eggs and bread. Like, that's not the Dude, you like fried eggs?
Well, he grabs the egg thing and he puts it between two pieces of toast and he's like, almost as good as an egg McMuffin.
But then he rips the side egg off, which I personally, when it comes to a breakfast sandwich, I love the side pieces.
Also, that egg wasn't that big. I think if he appropriately put it on the right part of the bread, it would have fit anyways. Yeah.
He could have just folded the top and
Yeah, there was plenty of room. There was no need to rip and discard any of the egg.
Could have done better.
But I'll
better,
say,
Patrick Duffy.
she's pulled this so many times that I think it's okay that he disregarded it this time. And she didn't really
It's not
fight
the
him on it.
disregarding, it's that he didn't feel her head again.
Right, but
That's all.
For story purposes, he couldn't because then he would know that she was actually sick. So he had to be able to blow by it to get to this part where Carol and her have a moment together. Because he runs off. And that's when, Carol asks, she feels her forehead and notices that she is warm. This is once Frank is gone. And Al says, I know what you're trying to do, but you're not my mother. You'll never be her. And, don't worry about me. Carol asks her if, do you really have a stomach ache or do you just want to get out of school? Which is a little out of time because you've already felt her forehead and sees that she is a little sick, but whatever. And Al thinks it doesn't matter what she says because nobody will believe her anyways. By the way, that's fair because you constantly lie about being sick and try to get out of school.
This is where it becomes a Miller Boyette sitcom, right? This is where it falls under we're an episode of Full House, right? Where it's like chaos and funny jokes, and all of a sudden it's like music changes, a serious thing is happening, and it's going to become a very family-oriented, real deal thing, right? Like it's on cue. Like it feels like a Full House right here.
I'm glad you brought up the music change thing because it was the first thing I noticed. It's when they leave, they have that weird, it's like a horn. It goes,
Like sad Ornette Coleman.
Yeah, because Al does eventually tell Carol that she really does have a stomach problem right now. And Carol's going to be like, okay, let's take you to the doctor's. So now we cut to the doctor's office where we see Frank, Carol, and all the kids in the waiting room, which I don't know why all the kids went with them. I don't think that was necessary, but
because their relative is in surgery. Major
yeah,
surgery.
I mean, that's fair. Even though they don't know
there's
her.
nothing weird about that.
no, but I think even if you look at every time, like within your own families, it's just typically you don't bring all the kids along. You would leave them at
Jay,
home
I've
with
seen a
other
sitcom
families.
where a bunch of people meet up while a guy gets a finger up his butt and John Mulaney. So
Yeah.
this is normal to me.
Also, this is a very Full Housey type thing, right? Like it's a big family. When one person does something, we all support them, right? Like it's following that mold.
Yeah.
It's like when Michelle fell off her horse and got amnesia.
And she forgot how much of a piece of shit Uncle Joey was.
But Frank feels bad because he didn't believe Al and said if Carol didn't take her to the hospital, her appendix could have burst. And then Karen goes, I wish the zit would burst. And I was like, a little forced this time because she doesn't have a lot. You can see like they kind of tiered like which kids we think are the stronger actors right now. So we're gonna feature Al the most, and then we're gonna give Dana some lines, and JT's gonna get some lines, and then like Mark and Brendan just don't talk at all this whole episode. But her, it's like we get you're the self-centered one, you're the Hillary Banks, you're the whatever, like the one who's more image focused. But your new stepsister is in the hospital going through surgery and you're going, ew, I wish the zit would burst, much like how her appendix almost burst. I don't know.
I wish that, though, again, we talked about the writing, right? If she didn't do that, if she went up to the doctor, or you saw her when the doctor walked away being like, she asked you to go in. It's like, excuse me, doctor, here's your question. What do you know about zits? That would have been like a lol, and it would wouldn't have been her just shoehorned in being like, I can't pop this fucking pimple.
If that happened, yeah, after we heard from the doctor and we know that she's okay, that can change the tone. But at this point, you don't know what's wrong or the severity of it.
I just think if she's that self-centered, she wouldn't have even gone.
I don't think she was asked if she would like to go or not.
Stayed with the aunt. She's, one salon over.
She's like 15, right? She could have been home. They could have showed her at home with Clearasil pads and answering the phone, right? Like she could have had like the stuff on her and been like, they all went to the hospital. Like you could have worked around that, I guess.
Yeah, possibly. It felt weird and out of place.
Question though, they're all there together. What kind of did they drive 2 separate cars, or do you think they all drove one like giant Lambert clown car?
I don't think they've only been a family for a few days. I don't think they've purchased a giant car that would facilitate everybody yet.
I've seen the way Frank can pack, all right? He stuffed them all.
Well, Frank's whole family fits in the truck and we're minus one person, right? So now you can fit one of the other kids in there.
Yeah, but that's 4 more people. You can't subtract 1 and add 4. You would still need 3 extra bodies in theory that would fit inside of the truck.
Throw them in the truck bed.
I imagine it must have been either the mother or the sister had to drive the rest of them there.
Carol can drive.
But Carol was already there. She took Al to the hospital. She couldn't drive the rest of the kids. She's already there.
Right.
All 5 kids are left in the house.
So with Carol and 1 kid, so now listen. So that's 8 people, right? So now we're taking 2 out of the equation. Usually Frank can drive the 4 of them. Now he would have to be able to drive 6 of them. No, someone probably dropped them off.
We don't know how much time passed because all the kids are in school. So maybe Carol's there. She called him. They're in thing, and then separately they went and got them from school after.
And this is
after school.
Classic overthinking on our parts because there's no way that the writers even thought about this. The next scene just begins and they're all just waiting there. Yeah, but so. This is, because they're all there, this is kind of the first time we're seeing some interaction between both sides of the family where there's kind of some bonding going on. Dana tells JT that she's sorry about Al. JT kind of puts his hand on his shoulder and says thanks, but she gives like a don't ever touch me.
There's your step-sibling moment, Joe. Your real one.
Yeah, this really could have done it. Especially in a hospital, we have so many options.
Yeah.
Show me your tongue depressor. Boom, there it is.
I think they're still children here, so we'll skirt a line.
If they were adults.
And then Brendan and Mark are talking, and it's kind of a similar start with Mark telling him that he's sorry. And Brendan says having your appendix out is no big deal, said he had his removed, and then he opens his mouth to show Mark, which obviously he's confusing his appendix with his tonsils, I'd imagine. But I love it. It cuts to Mark's reaction, and he looked like he was almost in pain for being so disgusted by how stupid Brendan is right here. Like the face he made was, I thought, really good.
Well, he's like a young white Urkel. So he's super genius levels. He was doing, genetics for his school project. And I don't even know how old he's supposed to be.
From what I understand, too, his character was made to be like a white Urkel. It just didn't quite pan out that way. But that was some of the intention of the network when they put the show together.
Yeah, you could see it, especially in this pilot, at least.
Yeah, it just didn't pan out that way.
The similar glasses and the demeanor, yeah.
Yeah. So then this is when the doctor comes out and informs the parents that she is out of surgery and she's recovering fine and she'll be okay. The doctor said she'd like to see you, and as Frank gets ready to head in, he's corrected and is told that she was asking for her mother. So now Carol's a little touched by this and said, she said that? She called me mother? And the doctor says, well, actually, she asked to see the bimbo, but I assumed it was a pet name.
Cringe. That joke didn't hit for me.
No, that joke didn't land. I saw where they were going, but I'm like, why do they keep using the word bimbo?
90s.
I would have liked it more if she remained touched by it and she went in there. She went, I met my real mother. And
Yeah.
It just gets dark.
Mama's appendix.
Yeah, because Carol does walk in and heads over to the bed and informs Al that the bimbo is here. And so she's embracing it, I guess. And Al apologizes, though. And she says, I was sleepy when I woke up and I couldn't remember your name. And Carol said that was understandable since they only met 3 days ago.
I thought it was nice, though, that they gave her the moment where she was like, sorry, I wanted you still, but I couldn't remember your name. I only knew you as Bimbo. Also, I'm under anesthesia. Like, they sweetened it up pretty good.
Another one, I would have liked it. We only met 3 days ago. What have I done? It's like the realization of everything.
Or they do the Dallas thing. She wakes up instead, and everyone's in the shower, just like with J.R. Ewing wakes up in the shower. Patrick Duffy's in the shower. They just do like a 1 episode to make a long joke. There's like, well, the network paid $1 million to make this joke for no reason, everybody.
Well, this is when we get the actual like Full House sentimental part, I felt, because that like piano music starts up as Carol starts to sit next to her in the bed.
That's definitely borrowed score music too.
Yeah,
from Full House.
it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not your mother, but I'd really like to be your friend. And Al's like, well, why are you being so nice to me? They found a tumor, didn't they?
A cancer joke.
Yeah.
90s.
Carol tells her that being friends is the first step to being a family, and she says she knows that this is all happening very fast, but this could be a good thing for all of them in the long run, and that they do have one thing in common, and that's that they both love her father. Again, for me, a little too soon, but okay, we're split decision on that one.
They're in love. Yeah, let it ride, man.
Hey, some people think it's too early to say love. Some people think it's okay, but sometimes those same people think it's okay to eat medium well burgers. So, I mean, who are we judging here? We're saying that not everyone's opinions are skewed in the right
As
direction.
somebody who loves a medium well burger and Suzanne Summers.
Don't be bringing my medium well burgers into this when you drink Moxie. You have
The drink-
no.
The nectar of a real man, Moxie.
Oof.
But
Ew.
again, unfortunately for a lot of our listeners, because we've mentioned this before, I don't think many people even know what Moxie is. Moxie is a delicious soda, but it's a little regional to the Northeast.
It's motor oil. You can put it in your car.
It is almost like a cola. It is very tough to
No.
describe. I
Oh.
think
It is
it is
not like a
advertised as distinctly different. I wish I could send a Moxie out to all of you listening as a thank you, but unfortunately, you'd have to come up to these parts, I believe, or probably the internet exists. Look it up on Amazon.
You
Overpay
heard
for
it
a
here
pack.
first, everyone. Jay hates our fans.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't. I don't know if I could send Moxie out to everybody. Oh, you're saying that sending them Moxie would be a bad
Yeah,
thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely
that-
not.
That's a hate crime, I think.
No.
Well, it's a crime and I hate it. I guess that
yeah.
works out.
But and anyways, if you're curious, go look up Moxie if you're not from this area. But yeah, anyways, Al says she's leaving the house in a few years, so it would be nice if someone was around to cook for her dad. I wouldn't say a few years, judging by her age. She probably has
12 years?
Yeah, she's got a little while before she's going to be out of the house, but whatever. And Carol asks if she can give her a hug if she's very careful, obviously because he just came out of surgery. Al accepts and reminds her first that she could throw up at any moment. So now the two hug, and that's when you get Frank opening the door, sees them, just kind of smiles and stands there. Sitcom stuff.
Yeah, like just wait for like doobity bow now.
Yeah.
I feel like this was very rushed, the bonding. I would have preferred if maybe they waited off on this plot point, couple episodes, have the family together, not "you're not my mom," a few things, and then maybe a two-parter, she collapses because of the appendix, and then they bond because she's there for her. But the fact that in the course of an episode, they shoehorned this all in, and now she's the hard one. Let's hug. Like,
Well, I think what happens is for a pilot and for first time watchers, you need to end on some sort of a hope spot. You can't end on a negative. So you can't end with everybody hating each other unless you could find a very comedic way to get out of it. Because you don't want to like leave everyone a sour taste in their mouth if it just kind of ends with negativity. So they're just trying to inject this towards the end to kind of bring it together. So people are going, you know what? I do like this show.
see, I would welcome the negativity because I'd be like, how are these two polar opposites going to get along?
Right.
I want to tune in next week.
That little bit of a hope spot that they need. Maybe it didn't need to be this extreme, but maybe something had to happen at the end to kind of give you a reason to want them all to be together.
To point exactly what you were saying. Maybe in episode 2, she goes, "Man, what was I thinking?" Calling, being all touchy feely. Like, there's your. They have comedic wiggle room. She's under anesthesia, so remember that too. If we're gonna really dissect it,
I would have liked it if instead of just Patrick Duffy at the door, the other kids were at the door too, because then that gives you the reason for them to maybe give Suzanne Summers a chance, because then they see it too.
Now that's very Full House.
Right? Because at this point now, only Al is like on her side, right? You still have all these other kids.
Maybe her two brothers. Maybe it doesn't have to be all of them, but
Right, but like
the two brothers.
Patrick Duffy and the two other kids come by and they're like, well, you know what? Maybe she's not so bad. She took care of Al and brought her to hospital, right? Like then you have a reason, and then you do another episode.
You're
where,
not a bimbo after all.
Thanks, rat boy. Right? Ha ha ha. Everybody laughs. Doobity-bop. Wow now. Everyone goes out.
Yeah. So anyways, it cuts to that night, and now Frank and Carol are in bed, and Carol's making a list of all the things that she needs to get for everyone at the grocery store. And she asks Frank if there's anything that he wants, And then he grabs the notepad and writes something down, which, sorry to be crass here, I can only imagine with the amount of time he wrote either sex or pussy.
I think he drew a penis.
I thought it was 4 letters, so I said anal.
Joe, you think he wrote anal?
Yeah, because it looked like he wrote 4 letters. Like, I was trying to see how many, because I was like, if he draws 3 letters, it's sex. If he draws 5 letters, it's whatever. So maybe head. Maybe anal. It looked
she
like
also
4
like
to me.
turned it to the side to like look at it. So
That's
maybe it was
why
a
I
drawing.
think he drew a picture. She turned it.
No. He writes. Listen, this is the 90s. They write in cursive. He could have definitely wrote like blowjob or head. If it's a 4-letter word, he could have wrote head.
I just said that again, too. Why do you not listen to anything I say?
Maybe I do have a carbon monoxide leak in my house. Did
No,
you say
they just-
cursive?
No, but I said head. I said 4 letters. Is it your anal or head?
Oh.
Listen, great point on the cursive, though, buddy.
Yeah, I do like the
Yeah.
cursive idea.
All you. The cursive was all you. But
But he writes something we're assuming is crass and very
something
sexual.
dirty. Yeah, obviously it's something dirty. So she says, Frank, the kids might see this. And then horny Frank is like, well, then let's get this crossed off the list, and ends with them making out again. And
Horny Frank.
I don't know. Again, I know this is horny Frank, but your daughter just had her appendix removed. It was kind of like a long day. Like, I don't know if I'd be like all horned up as soon as I got home.
He knows she's safe. Newlyweds.
Yeah. Well, she's not going to die. I guess we're good now.
This is one thing I've learned from sitcoms, because every sitcom someone loses an appendix, it's very safe.
Yeah, it seems to be okay.
Zero danger there.
But that was the conclusion of the episode, except there is an outro, and we mentioned it really early on in this episode, where it's just kind of like a musical rendition of the intro, and it's just more of that roller coaster footage, which again, I just assume is they need to get their money's worth. They paid so much money for this intro. Like we needed a helicopter shot of this roller coaster. So we are going to use every bit of this footage that we have.
You would have da bow bow.
And they also paid for a very sick saxophone solo.
Actually, you know what else cost a lot of money and something that you wouldn't have even noticed? So we mentioned earlier, or Ferg mentioned, that this is the Six Flags in California. So when you are panning out, if you were to actually pan out from this roller coaster, it would be the parking lot. They digitally rendered the parking lot to turn it into water. So for a 90s sitcom with limited amounts of computer graphic availability, they changed the parking lot to be water to make it seem more like area appropriate when they panned out on that shot.
That is interesting.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And then also as they panned out, you just hear bum 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 bum.
Mr. Six. But in my head, they have the guy from the movie Running Man who like turns the dummy into Arnold so the other dude can kill him on TV. Like, if we edit this away, this parking lot, we could get water.
If it was a parking lot, would you go, wait a minute? Shouldn't there be some water there? Like, I don't like
This
no one-
sucks.
Yeah, like who is that much of a specific geography buff to be
Yeah.
like, well, you know, in Port Washington, Wisconsin, if you were to go northeast, there would not be a body of water.
Wait, there's no parking lot near the roller coaster.
I also assume they added all those trees. It was like a theme park
Yeah.
in a forest.
Welcome to Jurassic Park. DNA.
Donald DNA.
What is Frank gonna shoot all over his wife tonight? DNA.
That's the oh God. That's the project Mark was working on earlier. The genetic project he was doing.
Maybe that's what he wrote down on the
The project
paper.
Frank was working on.
I do love that his sexy dirty word he wrote down. He just wrote DNA.
Dino DNA.
Or if he spelled out all of DNA, he's like, "What do you want tonight?" It's like deoxyribonucleic. It's like, okay, that's too much. Stop saying it.
What I find funny too about the Six Flags park as well is they were the only ones in there, correct? I didn't see too many people.
No, you see other people because when the splash thing comes down, there's other people on the ride with them.
One thing I just want to add too is there is an episode where they go to this park. I remember it like distinctly because there's that whole water part. They hear the kids. It goes, they're trying to say something to it. They're saying, get off the bridge. And then they get soaked. It's like opposite of DuckTales. Well, Cody's there.
Oh,
So it's
it can't be
definitely
then,
not.
Yeah. Was this? Well, does he come in first season late or is he just second season?
He comes in like a few episodes in, I believe.
Okay, so he is first season. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the one main thing I really remember from the show. I remember that episode. I love in sitcoms when they go to theme parks or on vacation.
Yeah.
Like,
That was a big thing for TGIF shows too. Like, there's a 2-parter Full House. Roseanne did it.
I want to say Full House too. Full House went to Disney, right? Isn't that when
Yeah.
Danny was going to propose or whatever?
on Full House, she kept seeing Steve everywhere, like on the Indiana Jones ride. On Full House was when Stefan proposed to Laura at Disney.
Right, yeah. But they go to Disneyland, right? Because Roseanne, I think, goes to Florida for Disney World, but I think the California shows, like Full House, it makes more sense for them to go to Disneyland.
I remember Danny Tanner and his girlfriend Vicky was, I think, her name. They were at some sort of a restaurant that was like in an aquarium. Something like that. It was like an underwater.
Right, because then there's a joke about somebody in the diving tank, right?
It's Joey. It's Joey and Jesse. They're doing their radio show from inside the giant tank.
You're
Why do I
right,
remember it so much? But yeah.
From Rush Hour Renegades?
Yes.
It's also there's the subplot that Michelle wins some contest where she gets all the wishes she wants. So like they basically like wait on her, but she cut Stephanie in line.
And then doesn't the genie become Steve?
Well, Steve is Aladdin, right? In real life?
Well,
Steve was
is
Aladdin in actual, yeah. So I think they tried to do a little wink with that at some point. But anyways, that's a lot of Full House talk. And I think we've talked about this. We've talked about Step by Step for quite a long time already. So I think before we start tangenting too long, I think unless there's any final comments you guys have, I think we're just about ready for the green light.
I could talk about Horny Frank for 3 more hours.
Maybe we'll, yeah. If anyone ever wants to hit up Ferg privately on Instagram and you want to talk about Horny Frank, you go right ahead and he'll talk to you all night about it.
That manipulative bastard.
Actually, I stole this shirt from Horny Frank.
But but yeah, let's get on, and I think we'll do the green light or cancel now. I'm gonna go in the order I see you guys in. Gordo, I'm starting with you.
Oh boy. Cancel. The whole, once I got the premise of Horny Frank, because I don't know what happens in any other episode. He's manipulative. He's a stalker. He's clearly a bad parent. It's not funny, and there wasn't that many like, haha, giggle, let me watch this. But I will give it A+ for theme songs.
Ferg.
Green light for the reasons Gordo canceled. I like Horny Frank, and much like her, she sees him and says, this guy's a mess. I can fix him. That's how I feel. All right. So you know what? I wish the show stayed like this. I like the opposites attracting, the clean side and the dirty side. I'll say this. I had completely different thoughts about this show from my memories, and just looking at it a different way, it's very strange, but I did enjoy it. I was a little on the fence. But I would like to see more. I was entertained. The same reason I was entertained in the 90s with this show. I kept watching that. I would keep watching now. So, green light.
Joe.
Yeah, I'm with Ferg on this one. Mainly the reasons I would say yes are the reasons Gordo would say no. And I think that it says something that one of the shortest, easiest episodes to watch and take notes for was one of the longest ones we ever talked about, minus one person from the podcast, right? There's just so much to go on here. It ages weirdly, but it's not aged in a way that you're uncomfortable watching it like some stuff is. It's fun to watch. I want to keep going. I loved it as a kid. It's hard to not like something on TGIF. I feel like they did a pretty good picking for shows that went in that rotation that became sort of weird brain staples as a kid. And I didn't think I'd get to make as many horny Patrick Duffy jokes as I did today, and I'm so stoked about that. So it's a green light for me.
So I've been very conflicted, and I'm the one who picked this episode. I love Step by Step, or did a lot growing up. I haven't really revisited it in some time now, but I think as I watched this, I enjoyed it, but I'm having a hard time deciphering if I'm enjoying it because of my memories of enjoying the show or because I genuinely like this episode. And even as I'm talking now, I'm still a little unsure of where I'm going to go. Because when I think back to Step by Step, now that we've completed talking about it, some of my favorite things about the show aren't present. I really liked Cody, the cousin. Like the little things, how the Lamberts would make chocolate milk in their mouth. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they would take a big swig of milk and then like put Hershey syrup in their mouth and like swash it around. Like, and then I would try that as a kid. And that's something from this show.
And that's similar to why I canceled Trailer Park Boys last week. So I know exactly what you mean.
So I think when I look at this, it's tough because I did enjoy the episode, but I think it's because I just know I like the show. I think when I really look at everything that happened, and I remove myself from the situation, I think I'm actually going to lean towards a cancel So that's what I'll go with. And it's a tough decision because it really could have went either way. And like I said, even as I began talking, wasn't sure how I was going to vote.
We got a tie, boys.
So with that being said, we're at a tie. So we won't know whether or not this show passes or not until we hear from Nick,
Pressure's
which
on.
you'll have to keep an eye out for our social media, which is S1E1 Pod on Instagram. We'll put a graphic up usually towards the end of the week after this episode's out. So keep an eye on that, S1E1 Pod on Instagram, but additionally, S1E1Pod.com is where you can find all the links to everywhere to follow us, anywhere for to listen to episodes, anywhere for our social medias. Everything's at S1E1Pod.com. So I ask you, go there, rate, review, subscribe, follow, do all those things on all the various links. We appreciate it very much. Please spread the word. Let people know. If you enjoy the show, hit us up. Let us know about it. Tell us things you like and don't like. We always take that stuff to heart. But tell your friends. Let them know about us. Because we would like to continue to see growth. It does mean a lot to us. That being said, that's it. That's all the time we have for this week. Thank you guys for listening. Catch you next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best day by day.